Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hey, how you doing? Apparently you're not doing well. I actually heard that over here.
I gotta go. Well, so we've been talking about several things going on here in the tri-state area. One of which we will not be able to talk about this evening is the big events going on down at the local bar scene. We cannot talk about that. Other than that, we were started talking about. Travis had mentioned there's a local, Indiana case of measles.
Oh yeah.
And
Allen County, is that Indianapolis? I'm not sure.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
We got a couple different clips that's going to basically talk about, measles goes around every year, even though there's vaccines, even though usually there's not major significantly bad things. The big thing I want to talk about and let Doc agree and disagree on some of this. We got some Dr. Peter McCullough stuff. Is measles is not completely not in our society. There are somewhere between 1,000 and 3,000 cases across the United States per year, based on what I'm hearing.
Not that much.
Okay, well, based on what I'm hearing, that's what I've heard on clips. So we can truth seek and dig back and forth on that. But what people need to know, if people, the media is really bad. Local media is bad at fear mongering. And basically, bad mouthing people that haven't had the vaccine, or they suggest that they haven't had the vaccine. Like some of the cases that have been found, they are breakthrough cases where the children have been vaccinated and they still got measles. So there's a whole bunch of different things going on. The one thing I want to say is don't be afraid of it. There are treatment things that can be done. Dr. Roy and I and Travis have talked about that a little bit already today, but I'll let Dr. Roy talk a little bit about the measles and what he thinks, or we can watch a clip and then get into it after that, however you feel about it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about it is that I had measles when I was 5 years old. Of course, that was in the middle of the 50s.
Back in the mid-1900s?
Yeah, back in the 1900s. Back right after the Depression,
Oh, yeah.
I had German heart measles back in the last century. That sounds pretty old.
Oh, yeah.
I was born in the 1900s. I mean, that sounds pretty old. So there you go.
So anyway, I was sick for about 10 days, and then I got over it, and my immunity has continued till now. I check it every few years. And I'm still quite immune to
So were you
measles.
not vaccinated for it?
They didn't have a vaccine.
Oh, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
It was 1955.
Did they have televisions back then?
Black and white.
It was 1955. We had black and white TV.
Okay, yeah.
Eisenhower was the president.
Ike.
Yeah.
Donna Reed was the heartthrob of the... No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Yeah. That's right.
I used to watch that on Nick at Night, Donna Reed show. Leave It to You, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
So anyway, back in those days, I didn't know it then, but we looked reverse when we were in medical school. In those days, there were probably 1 out of 1,000 died, and 1 out of 100 had to be hospitalized. But measles was... The only way you could not get measles was to live in a bubble, because the incubation time for measles is about 10 to 20 days, and during the latter part of that time, you can pass it on to other people and not be sick.
So I think the tension we have potentially here, Doc, is, tonight is number 50, by the way. Number 50. Oh, no, that's the wrong one.
There we go.
Yeah. You hear that, Dave? This is number 50.
Dave the Goose. Dave has
the Goose right
hang
up
on.
over my shoulder.
Show
It's
Dave.
got a sign on it and everything. So Dave
Dave the Honky.
Yeah.
No. Like, honky? Yeah, anyway.
Honker? So there's a tension a little bit between trusting and not trusting medical establishments. There's always been a little bit of vaccine hesitation. In my entire life, there's people that just haven't believed in them, people that believed in flu shots that haven't believed in flu shots. There's been name calling and all kinds of stuff going back and forth. COVID really did a number on people's trust in a lot of things. And so my fight back, and where I'm going to, even where I might agree with you on some things, I'm going to provide some tension just because, there's people out there that we trust that are questioning these vaccines. The Dr. Peter McCulloughs, the Robert Kennedys. I mean, there's a lot of concern about vaccines and the vaccine schedule.
No, I'm not allowed to do that anymore.
All these different, he can do it. He's not going to trigger himself. But what Dr. McCullough is going to say here is there's data out there saying right now that MMR vaccine deaths now exceed measles infection fatalities in recent years, which is not a minor statement. It's not a minor statement. And so we could say, well, there would be a lot more people dying if they didn't have the MMR. There's an argument to be done there, but why wouldn't we spread out MMR? Well, why have them all together? Why wouldn't we just not do a measles vax when it makes sense to do that, a mumps and a rubella, and spread them out and not jam them all together? Why does everything have to be together? Is one of the things that I have to say. But these types of videos of coming from people that we know and trust are creating vaccine questions, and some vaccine hesitancy, and only type of thing. And I'm not a doctor. It'd be really great if we had a vaccine specialist on here that.
I thought you were going to say a doctor. I was like, he's right over there.
No. I mean, so Dr. Roy is not a generalist. I mean, he's a pulmonologist, but he deals with all kinds of things, and he can't be an expert on every single thing that comes out every single day that changes. I mean, it's impossible. That would be asking him not to have a life. And even if he chose to do that, he still couldn't stay on top of all of it. So, I mean, you have to, the thing about the old school doctors is they would change their mind as things came through the door, and they treated people and our bodies change. We're evolving. We don't respond to the medicines the way we used to always. And if you get resistant to something, then something has to be changed. And but the standard of care hasn't allowed that. It especially didn't during COVID. So, let's start this clip because I think it's relevant. And it can be a fairly long clip. I don't know if we'll get all the way through it. It's like a 7-minute video, but it's Peter McCullough is talking about measles, and let's get into it. Maybe. Did you have me killed over here?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Should be good.
Let's try again. It worked just a second ago.
Is it muted?
It's not muted.
Have you ever seen Gone with the Wind?
Oh, it is muted. No, I don't know how that. Tell me why that. What's that?
Well, when you were talking about me not being an expert in everything in medicine, it's like the young lady who said she knew all about delivering babies, and then all at the last end, she said, "Lawsy, Miss Scarlett, I don't know nothing about birthing babies." Yeah, I don't know nothing about birthing babies.
But you probably could make it happen if you had to.
I have actually done a few. When I worked in emergency rooms, we called it Blue Jean Baby because.
So you know more than me and Travis about delivering a baby.
Yeah. Okay. I've by myself delivered 3. Okay. So there you go.
And they all survived?
Yeah, they all survived.
I think you're an expert. You're at least the best expert we have in this room.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, I think I figured out our tech problem. Let's start with the measles clip here again.
Which is now becoming somewhat of an issue here in the United States. Can you elaborate on that, Doc?
Our CDC says 378 measles cases, 1 death. The death of this child, age 6, very sad. The child developed measles. This is a 5-day illness. By day 3, saw a doctor, very high fever, should have been given antibiotics. Ultimately, the child's hospitalized 4 days later. Still not given antibiotics or breathing treatments. It was all too late, and sadly, she died. Doctors need to understand that, listen, vaccinated or not vaccinated, acute measles needs treatment. There's a vitamin A protocol, immunoglobulins for prophylactic after contact. ventilatory steroids, albuterol, and then very importantly, antibiotics.
Why is all this fear mongering going on? I mean, we've done nothing. We've done nothing with vaccines on measles. RFK Jr. has been there like 3 weeks. He's done nothing. You know, he goes on TV, but nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. And all of a sudden, now there's fear mongering about measles. We're all going to get this measles outbreak. You know, first it was bird flu. Now it's measles. What are they doing here?
We're having about an average year for measles. A few years ago, there was 1,200 cases. Currently, we're at 378. I think it's the left-wing media is essentially going after Kennedy for his prior statements regarding the overall childhood vaccine schedule.
But it's got nothing to do with what he's doing now.
Let's stop that for a second.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's essentially what my first comment was, let's just not be afraid of what's going on right now and assume that it's RFK's fault because RFK happens to be affiliated with Trump. Same thing with Elon and Doge. I mean, Doge is not a Republican idea. Trump is a Democrat. Trump has been talking about tariffs since the 1980s. Mm-hmm. He was definitely a Democrat back then.
Yeah, he was on Oprah talking about tariffs.
It was popular back then talking about it. He was popular back then talking about it. He was a darling. And then all of a sudden, he became a Republican and everything changes. Mm. So all I'm getting at, and I'm not here supporting or saying Republicans are better in any one or many things and that they haven't screwed up because they have. It's playing political football with our health, with our wellness, and with our potential harm if we don't get down to the to the root of it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. Let's take politics out of health.
Well, you were talking earlier about why do you put them all together?
Yeah. So let me. It wasn't on. So I said, why don't we spread out the MMR rather than have a measles, a mumps, and a rubella? I don't think we were filming it then, were we?
No,
anyway, yeah. So my argument was, let's make sure that each one of them's good and do it separately. So now go ahead.
It's done for convenience of the patients and the physicians. When you can give one shot with 3 immunizations in it, the kid doesn't have to get stuck multiple times, and the doctors don't have to, worry about that. So that's why it is. And some of them are even larger. Some of them have 5 immunizations in them. The one it's got a lot of stuff in it. It's got, diphtheria and tetanus and
with a Tdap.
Yeah. Well, it's a Tdap has 3. But there's another one that has 5 in it.
So do you have knowledge, or can you say with assurance that, let's say the measles vaccine is something, it's however amount is needed to be right, the mumps is however amount is needed to be right, and the rubella, are those things independently created and then basically just smashed together in one jab?
Yeah.
Or are they something that's done separately, put together, then measured? And let me just tell you why I'm asking that. Each vaccine that comes through has tolerance levels for, say, aluminum or different adjuvants that are put in. And it's not necessarily a problem, maybe it is a problem if it has a certain amount of one of these things in it. But if you smash 3 of them together and they each have their own tolerances, as one's a little higher and you get 3 together maybe that are on the high side of aluminum or whatever the thing is that might be bad, that could be a problem. So, I mean, I understand it's a convenience thing for doctors and maybe that the kids don't have to go back and get jabbed again. But, I mean, if we're just talking about doing what's the most safe and potentially effective, why wouldn't we think about spreading them out?
Well, in past times, we had a measles vaccine a long time before we had a rubella vaccine.
Okay.
We had a long time before we had mumps vaccine. And I actually got the mumps vaccine as a single shot. I remember that. And I was already immune to measles because I'd had them before. But they started putting them together partially for convenience of the patients and partially for convenience of the of the doctors. But the way I understand it is they take the vaccines, either dead vaccine or attenuated vaccines, and they put all three of those together, and then they put in the adjuvants. They don't put in 3 times the amount of adjuvants that they would put in a regular shot. They put in 1 time.
That's based on what you think, what you believe, based on what you've been taught
Yeah.
or learned. Okay.
Which one's the vaccine that was like multiple needles at one time? Because like
Oh, that was smallpox.
is that what that was?
Yeah, smallpox isn't even an injection. What you do with smallpox is you smear the stuff on your arm, and then you take a needle and just jab like this about 20 times.
Oh, I just remember my
And
dad had
so
the
that-
scar or pretty much scar there from
You
that.
want me to take off my shirt and show you mine?
No, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, I've been vaccinated twice for smallpox.
Maybe
We might get more reviews though. I don't
maybe
know.
have Patty take a picture of it, and you can show it.
You know,
bring it in next time.
I can't even remember where my second smallpox vaccine was put.
Well, it could be a fun experiment. She could go
Yeah.
searching for it. No comment.
It's like a seek and find, like a word search.
I don't have one of those great big Goombas that some people have.
That's what my dad's is like.
my
Yeah.
uncle, who's 10 years older than me, has one. I
Yep,
believe
it's like
in
right
his
here on
left
my
arm.
dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's indention.
Mine's about the size of the head of a pencil.
Okay, so I mean, again, my question, I think you answered to the best of your knowledge, would be, again, if we want to know the long-term efficacy and safety of each of these things, to me, first of all, we should be documenting and really paying attention if there is adverse effects. We're going to learn more about it in this particular.
The MMR vaccine has been available for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience is that if you get the right number of MMR vaccinations, I don't know whether it's 2 or 3, you will have lifetime immunity to measles anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've done tests on people that came in and said, "Oh, I'm so scared." This is 7 years ago. I'm scared of getting measles because they had like 1 case of measles in Indiana. And so I just drew blood, and she was well immune to that. And the same goes for rubella. In some places, I don't know whether it's everywhere, but in order to get married, the wife has to show proof of rubella immunization.
Interesting.
And the main reason is rubella, if the mother gets rubella while the child is in uterus, that kid is going to be really screwed up. It's going to have cataracts. It's going to have heart defects. It's going to have all sorts of other things. So rubella is nastier than measles itself.
Interesting. So, I mean, like, I'm just going to play the measles vaccine hesitant advocate. Okay. So, like, for me,
Where'd you go to chiropractic school?
What?
Never mind.
I thought he was going to law school.
Chiropractic. Oh, yeah, he's in law school now. Chiropractors are typically non-vaxxers.
Oh, well, I didn't know that, and I don't have any close friends who are chiropractors.
Some do, and I'm sure that Lobaz is going to get on.
Well, again, all I want is the data.
Yeah.
Now that we're going to have large language models and AI, we should be able to test large groups of people in fairly short windows of time. It should make our case studies happen much closer and much faster. Here's all I'm saying: if there's groups of people, let's say a large whatever percentage of homeschoolers don't want to be vaccinated, don't vaccinate their kids. There's some segment of homeschoolers that don't vaccinate their kids. Let's have them in a test group and compare them with another, 2 other test groups or 3 other test groups, and see what their long-term, short-term, all these different things going on. I mean, so there's one of the podcasts that we did several ago. We were talking a lot about measles, and that there is some evidence that people who have gotten measles, whether they had the vaccine or not, have lower rates of cancer and have other things. And you yourself are studying that because you didn't have a vaccine, and your immune system is stronger than a lot of people. So I mean, I would want to know. Again, we're talking about get this shot and don't ever get the measles, but what if not getting the measles isn't the great answer? What if getting the measles naturally and having a great protocol for treating it, just like we used to do chickenpox, like you want to get them and get it over with.
Chickenpox parties.
Yeah. I mean, so you want to get them, you want to get it in whatever. And maybe the measles is like that. I'm not saying it is. I'm just playing the devil's advocate here. We could be much less vaccine hesitant if we knew those studies were being done and we had some actual evidence either way. And we could then we could say you're wrong. Here's a test group of 1,000 people who weren't unvaxxed, 1 year, 5 year, 30-year lifetime. And here's the other group. And here's the different incidents of thing going on.
The one reason that, we have small amounts of measles is that even the unvaxxed people have herd immunity. And, if you get a kid in from Afghanistan who hasn't had measles and he gets measles or brings measles in, that's the problem with measles is that once you're exposed, you don't get sick until about 3 weeks later. It's a long incubation system, but 10 to 21 days is what that is. So if that kid gets exposed to measles in Afghanistan and they move to the United States, 3 weeks later, he comes down with measles and he's already infected 25 other people.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so, I mean, we'll play more of this clip. I'm not saying, Dr. Roy's not saying, Travis is not saying, don't get the MMR vaccine. We're not saying be vaccine hesitant. We're not saying anything. Do your own due diligence. There's tons of information coming out. Moreover, I think it's important for people to start demanding and asking questions. Like we should demand more. We should get the answers to questions that are pretty basic questions.
Well, of all the vaccines, MMR is the one that's been around nearly as long as polio and smallpox. And then there have been a lot of vaccines that have been added, and some of them have been very, very close to us. That's like COVID. But we eradicated smallpox simply by vaccination. We vaccinated everybody that we could. And
I think based on clips that I think we've shared before and other things, smallpox was on the way down by the time the vaccine came around. So I think it was already trending down.
Wait a minute. The vaccine's been around for 200 years for smallpox.
Okay. Well, based on some clips and things that we talked about and data that we've seen, I thought that smallpox was going down well before the vaccine came out.
It was going down because we were vaccinating people. Smallpox vaccine was developed 200 years ago. By Edward Jenner.
I think what you're talking about is we just started creating, indoor plumbing or a little bit healthier. Not everybody bathing in, crap lakes and stuff. It became just because they were doing those kind of things. But I don't know if it was smallpox. I can't remember what ailment it was. But
okay, I'll do more research on that. Don't take my word for it on that. I'll do more research.
Smallpox was the only way that we got rid of smallpox, and we did it 45 years ago. Was to vaccinate as many people as we possibly could.
Okay.
And the last known case of smallpox was in 1980. And since then, there is some live smallpox virus at the CDC and in Moscow, and that's it.
Okay.
Everything else has been destroyed.
I think they made a movie about Dustin Hoffman having to fight that. I'm kidding. That was Outbreak.
Yeah. I thought you were talking about Rain Man.
No. No, he was in a movie.
Smallpox gave him...
the ability to count cards?
Odyssey.
No, that gave him autism. No, that was the MMR. That was the MMR vaccine.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. All right, so let's get some more into this clip. It was too late, Travis.
I know.
That was
Yeah.
I had to-
It was more of that.
Why don't you wake up over there?
Let's get back into this clip here.
Yeah.
/Godzilla. Dr. McCullough, thanks for being with us. The role of antibiotics in the treatment of measles.
I don't know.
CDC
I don't know.
says
Stop.
378 measles cases.
We watched that, and somehow it advanced back.
Antibiotics are not really a big thing with that because even antivirals don't kill the measles vaccine. It's a virus, or the measles virus.
I'm going to say we were about at the 2-minute mark. I can start it again. I don't know why I reverted back to the beginning.
Regarding the overall childhood vaccine schedule.
Yep, that's where we
But it's got nothing to do with what he's doing now, so there's no relation.
They are, in a sense, trying to attack the Trump administration from all angles, in the commentary. So, for instance, my counterpart on CNN, Sanjay Gupta, the only thing he ever concludes is, well, we need to take more vaccines. So he hasn't worked to educate patients or even the newer generation of doctors that acute measles needs treatment. In fact, Gupta was questioning the role of steroids and antibiotics, which are secure in the peer-reviewed literature.
Don't we have now? Shouldn't there be extensive vaccine studies on what the ramifications are, on what the consequences are, so that parents can make an informed decision?
Man, that sounds familiar.
About their children?
Mm-hmm.
Just with measles alone, every year with the MMR vaccine since 2020, going forward, we actually have data longer than that. There's about 5 to 6 measles vaccine deaths every year reported in the vaccine adverse event reporting system. The range is 1 to 11. So if we've had 1 measles death versus 5 to 6 vaccine deaths, we have to weigh out risks and benefits. Our RFK is right. Vaccination should be a parental choice only, with no requirements, no mandates to attend school or university, work, or the military. We've got to get vaccines out of, politics and certainly out of public policy.
Okay, so I'm going to keep going on this clip, but this hits right back to where we got with COVID, Doc.
Yep.
And how they forced the vaccine schedule onto most people, including all kids at school and college. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to be in a classroom at any of the big schools, I think most schools across the country, if you wanted to be in class, they forced you to vaccine. They forced you to vaccinate. Mm-hmm. And that's essential. I mean, that's medical tyranny. I don't care how you say it, whether they say it was for a greater good or not, whatever the end result of it is. And all these people that are always screaming about, you can't tell about. Let's talk about abortion. If you
like my body,
my body, my choice. You can't not allow a woman to have a vaccine because it's her body, her choice. Why was this particular vaccine? It just basically washed that out. Well, and they used the argument that it was because it was going to get rid of the virus and no one was going to be harmed, but they didn't know that. There was no testing on it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to be opposite the aisle from you. I'm not saying I don't agree with you, but at least there was you could still be remote. Like there were no ramifications really other than not being there live.
Yeah.
People lost their jobs because they wouldn't do it.
That's true. But I was talking about the school mandates, but
I was
military.
Forced to take the vaccine because
my wife was.
The large health systems in this town said, if you want to send patients to us, then you and all of your employees have to be fully vaccinated for COVID.
Well, it's not just that. It was the social pressure.
Oh yeah,
and the shaming.
No, I know.
And the calling, you're
not vaccinated.
You don't care about my grandma. Oh, you're trying. It was all of these games that they played with. It was medical politics rather than actual results. And here we are. Now we're sitting here and looking back in the rearview mirror. Maybe it's a good thing at some level because it's now forcing us to question all these other things, and
we'll get so many eyes.
We'll get to the bottom of whether autism is related to vaccines. It is or it isn't. Like at the end of the day, we got to figure it out. Go ahead.
Well, you were talking about people not wanting to take the vaccines, and I thought, where am I going now?
Vaccine hesitancy.
Yeah,
were you talking about COVID or something?
Vaccine hesitancy. I agree that it ought to be the parent's choice, but sometimes parents aren't as well informed as other people are, and they will say, "No, I'm not going to vaccinate my kid at all," and the kid comes down with measles.
But what does well informed mean?
Haemophila.
What does well informed mean? Because again, just me playing the devil's advocate here, if there was such great data and that we could have perfectly written studies showing here's what happens whenever you don't vaccinate, here's what happens when you do, and then you have that information and it changes all the time because these, again, viruses come and go, and efficacy of particular vaccines may come and go. They might not be the same as they were 50 years ago whenever, the first polio vaccine came out versus what they might do today. But again, at the end of the day, maybe they aren't informed, but maybe they are informed and they don't like the information that they see. Or there's enough anecdotal evidence that they've heard. Maybe a close friend of theirs, their baby got a vaccine and 3 days later it died, and there was no other thing going on. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with information as much as it's fear. It's scary.
Sure it is. Sure it is. And we see the same thing with medications. People will read the summaries on the outside and say, "Oh man, it'll make my head explode." When one person out of 1 million had their head explode, and they probably already had.
I don't know what medicine you're looking at. Yeah, I'm not taking that medicine.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
But I had several patients who refused to take medications that they really, really needed. They said, "You got to do something else. I'm not taking any medicines." And I said, "Okay, your blood pressure is 200 over 130, and you're liable to have a stroke a whole lot more than you are to have diarrhea."
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you. And this is kind of off the cuff question, so I don't want to.
That's the way we play it off the cuff. I don't want
to corner you. I don't want to corner you, but.
I'm sitting in the corner.
Fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy.
Nobody puts Baby Doc in a corner. So, based on everything that we've talked about since, in the past 50 episodes, and, I think you're probably more understanding of vaccine hesitancy and medicine hesitancy than you were probably 50 episodes ago or even, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Based on what happened to you with vaccines and all that. But, now that there's other robust content out there that talks about different ways people treat different things. I mean, at least now when someone says, "I don't want to take that thing because one person's head exploded," what else can I do? Well, if it's high blood pressure, there is a large number of things that, I would say if their blood pressure is so high that they could stroke out on the way out of the thing, they should take medicine immediately. And then what can they do the next day to start naturally lowering it, whether it's more sunlight, better diet,
lose weight,
lose weight.
So if they listen to you and they actually do those things, okay, if you don't want to take this medicine long term, Susie Q patient, these are the things that you have to do. And if you're not going to take the medicine,
no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's too much work.
It's too much work.
Well,
I can't lose weight. Well, everybody can lose weight.
Now give me one of the weight loss pills so I can do that instead of the.
I think the problem though, Doc, is most
those make you dance.
The problem is though, most doctors won't have that conversation with them.
Yeah.
Like if you're hesitant and you don't want to take a shot, they'll just tell you to leave. Or if you don't want to take the medicine, well, go get a different doctor. If you're not going to listen to my recommendations, they get offended by it. Kind of an ego comes in rather than, okay, I understand.
I already gave people choices. I do that every time.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about doctors in general and this friction that we have.
I think sometimes his choice though is, didn't you say, well, I'll just give you the name of a good mortician? Like, didn't you say you've said that?
I used to do that back in the days when somebody didn't want to comply in the emergency room. You say, "Well, who's your mortician so that we know where to send the body?"
I don't know that this little path is going anywhere, so I'm going to get back into this.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Why are we even talking about this?
What should parents like? What if you're a parent now and you're looking at these vaccines? Like, how do you make a decision? You want to do the best, Dr. McCullough, for your child. Like, how do you go about making the right decision, taking ideology and politics out of it?
Right. A couple of principles. One, vaccines are far safer if they're taken individually as opposed to a big combination all at once. Second principle is vaccines are far safer if they're taken later in life. And so, applying these, World Council for Health in 2023 put out an advisory that said, listen, it's safer to wait right now. Because remember, our CDC ACIP panel is still recommending COVID shots in that huge bundle of childhood vaccines.
Yeah, right.
Let's
There
get
we go
to
there. Okay,
your
you beat
company,
me to
the
it.
wellness company, which is
Okay, so again,
CW's.
Doc, I want to trust vaccines. I'm trying to be the advocate, devil's advocate, and the skeptic, but also open to reason. We're trying to trust the same people for MMR that are telling us our kids should be taking mRNA COVID vaccines. Where do those two things line up at any capacity?
They don't.
So I can't trust both of them. I can't. If you sit here and tell me, hey, Chad, I know we've read all these things and people are dying, but I still believe you should take that mRNA vaccine. I don't know that we could have a podcast anymore.
Well, they really leaned on the fact that people were dying from COVID, not from the vaccine. When in fact people were dying from the vaccine. They'd say cause of death unknown, and they still do that on a lot of those. Furthermore, the vaccine registry has 38,000 deaths from COVID vaccine. And I suspect that the real amount is about 10 times that.
Are you talking about VAERS?
Yeah. And because to fill out one of those papers takes about a half an hour.
When they say like 1 in 10 actually is filled out. So that's based on several clips we watched in the last couple of weeks here.
That's right.
Haven't you also said, though, that a lot of the stats that were said that were COVID deaths were not actually necessarily COVID deaths? They were deaths due to being put on a ventilator or deaths, for other than...
Deaths that they got COVID and then they developed a bacterial infection on top of it and they died from that.
Or they got COVID and got hit, were on a motorcycle and died.
Yeah.
But they had COVID when they died. So that they died with COVID.
Coulda.
Right?
Died with COVID, but not from COVID.
I heard that was not something that was something that was done.
Yeah,
Like if
let me go back. Yeah, because they got more money from the government if they had somebody died from COVID.
They meaning the hospital.
Yeah, meaning the hospitals. But let's go back 100 years and think about the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu went worldwide in a big hurry. And a lot of people died from that. I don't know the exact number, but they're talking about 20 or 30 million people died from Spanish flu back in the 1919, 1920, 1921. And we didn't have antibiotics then. We also didn't have ventilators. Now, if you say, well, so-and-so died because they put him on the ventilator, then people are going to get the thoughts in their head that, no, I'll never be put on a ventilator. It's like some of the patients that I treated with oxygen at home. And they said, no, I don't want to go on oxygen because my cousin went on oxygen and he was dead within 6 weeks. He probably would have been dead within 2 weeks if you hadn't given him the oxygen.
I mean, to be fair, correct me if I'm wrong. Back in the 2020,
yeah,
a lot of people felt that being put on a ventilator was pretty much a death sentence. I mean, that was, I recall that.
A lot of them survived.
Anyway, 50 to 100 million Spanish flu deaths.
Yeah, well, that's more than I thought. That's because we didn't have ventilators and we didn't have antibiotics then. So we basically had nothing to treat that with,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to get into the remdesivir and ventilator thing because that's a whole new.
Remdesivir doesn't work anyway.
Yeah, I know. Well,
I haven't prescribed that in over 3 years.
Yeah. Well, that's what the well, I mean, CDC, I think was, or whoever it was, FDA was recommending it. That someone come in super sick with COVID, they give them remdesivir and put them on a ventilator, and then that was like a death sentence.
Yeah.
So you were talking about getting money for how that death certificate was filled out, if it said with COVID or of COVID or what have you. I didn't know this. You may have known this. My brother-in-law is dating a mortician, funny enough, and somehow in conversation it came up, but when she embalmed or took care of a body and that body had on the death certificate that was due to COVID, she actually got money, extra money.
That is absolutely 100% true.
Yeah, no, it is. So I didn't know.
I heard that from several. We know several different funeral home owners, and that was definitely the case.
Now, who did the funeral home person get money from? The government?
It was some kind of government subsidy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I heard that locally, also. Yeah, and it wasn't a small amount of money.
It's the family that pays for that.
It wasn't a small
the family does pay their portion, but because of that,
it was like a bonus because the person died with COVID.
Yeah.
Hell, everybody had COVID.
Everybody was getting their hand. Everybody was getting their hand in that.
I made sure when my grandmother died during the time of COVID, she didn't get COVID. She didn't die of COVID. I said, look at the death certificate because it doesn't need to say anything about COVID, and thankfully hers didn't. But I'm like, I don't want her to be a meal ticket for somebody.
Right. All right. Let's get back into the clip.
Yeah.
See, which is kind of taking a lot of this country by storm right now. Your growth has been incredible because it's really a new way to do medicine. I've got all of the kits. I just got.
This just turns into a little more of a promo in this section, so I don't want to share this one.
All right.
Sorry.
All of his kits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here in his defense, and he deserves one. He was somebody that I went to early on whenever everyone was pushing shots. I think he was a part of the IMath Plus or whatever, which was the ivermectin and hydrochloroquine and the zinc and all that. He wasn't selling them at the time. He said, get this number of things, and you had to get like different multivitamins, and you had to get ivermectin. So I think what he's doing kit wise just makes it easier. And if he's making money, so be it. I mean, he's been put through the ringer enough.
I've got all that crap at home, so if anybody gets sick and wants it.
And we're going to plug ivermectin before it's all said and done with here today, because there's a lot of that stuff going on. Let's just, there's a little, I'm going to try to sprinkle in some humor. This go around. I don't know if this one's humor, but Travis sent me, I think it was Travis, you sent me this clip, assuming I get it queued up right.
I'm not sure which one. Let me see here.
Is it John Cleese thing?
Yeah.
Wasn't that you?
No, you played that already because you didn't know if I knew who John Cleese was.
I didn't play.
Oh, I did. No, I did send you this one. This is the different one. This is a different one. Yeah, I did send this to you.
All right, so I'm gonna get this queued up here and we'll listen to it.
This is actually pretty good. I like it. And this was back in like 1980 something when he recorded this.
Huh?
When John Cleese recorded this. This is old.
Okay. I was going to say Joe Rogan had been around.
No. The John Cleese clip that he plays was like from the mid-late 80s or something.
John Cleese is an old Monty Python guy. I mean, he's been around forever, but this is definitely an old.
Made a great video about this, why extremism is so interesting. From 30 years ago, in pre-social media, there's no social media at this time. And he essentially nails what's going on with both the right-wing extremists and the left-wing extremists.
Seriously, though, we've heard a lot about extremism recently, a nastier, harsher atmosphere everywhere, more abuse and bother boy behavior, less friendliness and tolerance and respect for opponents. All right, but what we never hear about extremism is its advantages. Well, the biggest advantage of extremism is that it makes you feel good, because it provides you with enemies. Let me explain. The great thing about having enemies is that you can pretend that all the badness in the whole world is in your enemies and all the goodness in the whole world is in you. So, if you have a lot of anger and resentment in you anyway, and you therefore enjoy abusing people, then you can pretend that you're only doing it because these enemies of yours are such very bad persons. And that if it wasn't for them, you'd actually be good-natured and courteous and rational all the time. If you want to feel good, become an extremist. If you join the hard left, they'll give you their list of authorized enemies. Or, if you'd rather be an extremist on the hard right, no problem, fine, you still get a lovely list of enemies, only they're different ones. Once you're armed with one of these super lists of enemies, you can be as nasty as you like, and yet feel your behaviors morally justified.
John Cleese made a great video.
I don't know what was with that. That background music was annoying, but
yeah. So I mean, I think part of what we're trying to do here on the podcast is kind of break through the noise of what's political and what's factual medical. I mean, we're going to get into some AI stuff later on today. I think AI has a lot of potential to help humanity. It's going to have a significant number of benefits in the medical realm, but it's important that everyone is seeking truth in it, because we can look at bad data and bad studies and bad journals and draw models that harm a lot of people unless we are open and not being political, and we're not going after money and trying to make profit off of the outcome, off of however we diagnose or what we treat it with. I mean, you shouldn't be profiting from the MMR vaccine if you're on this program promoting it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, to me, that just there is a perverse incentive there.
So you mean you shouldn't be like Fauci and make a bunch of money?
Okay. Well, you just queued up something.
Well,
oh, did I? I mean, that man, he's the closest thing to Satan I think we have on earth right now.
Doc, did you have something to say on what?
Well, I was going to say about the guys that worked for Pfizer. A classmate of mine worked for Pfizer, and he was talking about the wonderful things that they're doing, putting 3 things in the same injection: the COVID vaccine, the RSV vaccine, and influenza. And he said it's wonderful for the patients, and it works. It definitely works. And I'm just rolling my eyes on that. And then I jumped his boat with talking about COVID and all the cases of myocarditis and all the cases of dementia and that sort of thing that come out.
Mm-hmm. And vaccine deaths just them on their own.
Yeah.
Well, so in the list of things you will not hear in the local media or in many cases the left-wing media, which is probably about 95% of all media. And I keep hitting on this because I have friends that are in local media that are just saying, well, people don't want to hear this. Well, I think people might want to hear that Anthony Fauci has had 7 states file a criminal referral request filed against Fauci and top COVID officials. Let me just read this.
Yeah.
Travis, so you want to pull it up?
Yep.
April 8th, 2025, a law group in collaboration with former Feds group Freedom Foundation submitted formal criminal referral request to attorney generals of Arizona and Pennsylvania. These filings urge state prosecutors to open criminal investigation into Dr. Anthony Fauci and other prominent public health and government officials for alleged crimes committed during COVID-19 pandemic. There's some more information here. It's focal points, and this is on a Substack, but you can search this article. Here's the list of states. It's not Indiana. No, none of the states in the tri-state attorney generals.
And
Looks
Texas,
like Missouri's the closest.
Louisiana.
Yeah. So
Missouri,
tri-state attorney generals need to jump on board here. This is information. So here's the individuals named in the referral in the referral request: Anthony Fauci, and I'm not going to go through who they what their credentials are or who they were working for. Dr. Cliff Lane, Dr. Francis Collins, I heard that name a lot. Dr. Deborah Birx, I heard that one a lot. Dr. Rochelle Walensky, heard that one a lot. Dr. Stephen Hahn, Dr. Janet Woodcock. Dr. Peter Hotez, he has been a very vocal person on a many podcasts, coming on, just haranguing people, making fun of people. He was on Rogan, and Dr. Robert Redfield, Dr. Peter Daszak, and several other more. Combined list of alleged crimes across both states: murder, involuntary manslaughter, negligent homicide, assault, aggravated assault, recklessly endangering another person, vulnerable adult abuse, emotional abuse, neglect and abuse of care-dependent person, kidnapping. I don't understand that one. Trafficking of persons for forced labors or services. I don't know where those are coming from.
So kidnapping. Well, so you couldn't leave. You weren't allowed to leave your home. I mean, okay. You're kind of.
Well, yeah. There's a wouldn't they call it criminal confinement? I would think they would call that.
I don't know.
But anyway,
yeah.
So
in that vein, anyway,
maybe.
Maybe
Not in law school.
He's still going. He maybe hasn't covered.
I'm going to Grok Law School, baby.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's some good news there.
Just
you will
like
not
Mike Ross.
You will not hear that on local media. And I think the reason why it's relevant is because us as dissenting voices to the narratives that have been pushed upon us have been talking about Fauci, while others, including the left-wing media, basically have not, promoted him, protected him, done all these different things, which means people are still trusting what he's saying, and they're still taking this damn mRNA vaccine, and it's not safe. It's never been safe. It wasn't safe from the beginning because there's no way that they knew it could be safe. It could have turned out to be safe had it been around for 7, 8, 10 years and there were no negative effects. But as it turns out, negative effects started happening much sooner.
Yeah, and they were pushing for a vaccine really hard, and most of the other vaccines are, it takes 8 to 10 years before those are approved. They approved this one with an emergency and started giving it to people. They didn't have any iota of an idea of what it was going to cause. And all of a sudden, within 4 to 5 months, we saw these people with myocarditis, with all the other things. And the morticians were taking care of the dead and were getting these huge clots out of these people that they had never seen before. And if you don't believe me, just go out to X and look around. The guy's got pictures of the clots, and the clots are not regular clots. Regular clots are red, and these are white. God only knows what they're made of.
Well, I'm going to share, since we're on this vein, I got several other clips here just to kind of knock this thing out of the park. And I'm hopeful. I know many of the people that have listened to our podcast before, will probably say that we have talked about this enough, and many of the people that have maybe listened to us for the first time haven't heard this. But I want to continue talking about these vaccines until something is done about it. And I vowed last time we were on, and several times before that we're just going to hit it over the head. So there's a clip on the Died Suddenly Twitter feed. This has been a very reputable source for me. And
I use them a lot.
And Dr. William Mackus, we've heard him a lot. He was on in several clips that we've shared. But here's a quote, and then we'll play the clip, and it's just about a minute 31 clip. Quote, "Cold hard reality is that hundreds of Canadian children have died after taking Pfizer or Moderna COVID-19 vaccines. Now, the public doesn't know this because it's basically being covered up by absolutely everybody. Kids are dying. Kids like 17-year-old Sean Hartman, you heard from his dad today. Travis just learned last week that the mRNA COVID vaccine has been inserted into the child vaccine schedule. And again, the local media should be reporting that. If you're going to the doctor, a local doctor, and you don't have time, you don't watch, I don't think Fox News, if you want to call this a right versus left issue, I don't think Fox News is really hitting this vaccine thing the way they should be.
It's not.
So it's just underreported. And underreporting things to me is just as bad as telling a lie in many instances.
And I'll tell you the reason that the doctors are pushing this is that they are told by their superiors, hey, you've got to do this. And the superiors are told by the state health departments, and the health departments here are told by the health departments in the state.
Just so you say here, when you say here, it's not necessarily our city is relevant. It's local health departments.
Yeah.
So whatever state
state you're in,
the directive comes from the top, and then it pushed to the local. So I've been very go ahead.
The state health departments are under pressure by the CDC and the other ones to do this. And I think partially because there's money involved in it, that's the way it was.
At what level, though, Doc? Because, I think at the local level, it's more golden duct tape and handcuffs.
Yeah.
Because if you work for the local health department and your bosses are just like, the CDC or whoever would have been the boss of the people pushing the narrative from the top down, aren't local health people just kind of at liberty to whatever the state level says? Can they go out on their own? And
no, they can't go out on their own.
Okay, so I mean, I can't get super harsh on them.
Where does the money come from? There's push money and there's hush money. And they get hush money if they don't say the wrong things, and they get push money to do just the things we're talking about, giving people COVID vaccines, giving 9-month-old kids COVID vaccines.
Okay, so who, in your opinion, is it the state attorney general's office that we need to be inundating with questions and demands about COVID-19 vaccines and about not being able to trust?
We've got 7 other states that are trying to indict Fauci. I think the guys and the people in the Attorney General's office here in Indiana, they've been pretty good about jumping on stuff.
Well, not this particular one. So anybody listening to this, if you want to play along, I've never done this on the program before. What I'm going to ask you to do is, if you're active at all on Twitter, go to the state attorney general of your state, whether it's Indiana, Kentucky, Illinois, or if you're listening in a different state, do it there, and tag your state attorney general's office. Ask them why we're not one of the 7 states that has a lawsuit against Fauci, and that's also stopping the mRNA vaccine schedule, both in COVID vaccines and childhood vaccines. And please tag me in that. You can tag at Chad Schmidt on Twitter. I don't know if Doc wants to be tagged on it.
Sure.
I'd like
Rescue Doc.
At Air Rescue Doc, and we'll repost those things and try to get the kind of the flag up the pole. I've been really critical of local health departments just because they haven't made any adjustment to the narrative. They haven't told us how they're going to change if something happens again.
There's
none of that.
Money and push money, and they don't get enough. If they don't push hard,
they lose a job.
They lose, well, not necessarily a job. They just don't get as much money from the state, and the state has to let people go because, they cut us back. You know?
So probably also tag our governor, because isn't the attorney general appointed by the governor of the state?
No, it's an elected.
Oh, it's attorney general is elected.
I think it is.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, you might be right on that. I'm imagining the governor could probably put some pressure on. But this is one of the things that we should be going up the chain of command and saying ultimately. So the attorney general's elected. I can go along with that. The governor, in our case, Braun, is the head of the state, and the buck stops with him. So if we take it up the ladder and say we're seriously concerned about this, he should put some political pressure and some words towards the attorney general.
Sure.
So
I'm surprised that the attorney general in this state has not done something like that, because he's jumped on a bunch of other things. That's for sure.
Well, is there anything more important than this?
Well, I don't know. It depends on where you're sitting.
mRNA vaccines being in the childhood vaccine schedule, I think that's pretty significant. I can't think of anything off the top of my head I'm more concerned about. I mean, getting poisons out of food and water would be a close second and third, but
getting the Chinese off our backs.
Well, I mean, you can get bottled water that doesn't have fluoride and all all the different stuff you want to avoid. You can't not get a shot right now and go to school. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, you're forced into that. All right, let's listen to Dr. Mackes here real quick. Short clip.
Cold, hard reality is that hundreds of Canadian children have died after taking Pfizer or Moderna COVID-19 vaccines. Now, the public doesn't know this because it's basically being covered up by absolutely everybody. Kids are dying. Kids like 17-year-old Sean Hartman. You heard from his dad today. Kids that just wanted to play sports. They wanted to play hockey. They wanted to play football, basketball, gymnastics. These kids, many of these kids were mandated COVID-19 vaccines in 2021 just so they could continue playing sports. That was a crime for which no one to this date has been punished. So there are hundreds of dead Canadian children. I've reported many of them on my social media accounts, probably one of the reasons why AHS is trying to shut down my social media accounts. And no one wants to take responsibility for these dead children. No one wants to say, yes, we were responsible. We mandate these shots. We're going to take responsibility. So everyone is covering it up. Health Canada is covering it up. Zero deaths from COVID-19 vaccines, according to Health Canada. Canada's public health chief, Dr. Theresa Tam, covering it up. Alberta Health Services, covering it up. College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta, covering it up.
Yeah. So again, not covering things and not sharing things is just as bad. If you know something is not healthy and it's killing people, you have a duty. I mean, the first do no harm principle should apply at every level.
I mean, if we had 38,000 COVID deaths and they've had none, I mean, it must be something about the cold or something. I don't know.
No, nobody in our government.
I'm just kidding.
Nobody in our government is admitting to the 38,000 COVID vaccine deaths either.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's not that we're doing so good.
It's there.
It's there.
If you look it up,
you can find it.
Yeah.
We at least
Does Canada have their own VAERS? Their own version of VAERS, I wonder?
Must not be very good.
Well, probably not. They have not communal health care. Universal health care. Yeah.
Universal health care.
Those doctors probably would get sued and fired and maybe even disappeared if they started posting things on a database.
Well, I have noticed that some of the physicians that are attached to the big groups here in town, they don't really push. They say, when I went in for my last physical, you want another COVID booster? And I said, hell no. And he said, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what
because he's done his due diligence. Back during COVID, people were screaming at their patients. If you don't do this, you're gonna die.
You're gonna kill your grandpa.
Got another clip. I've been critical of RFK. Dr. Roy has been telling me to be patient. That things are happening, just not fast enough for me. I think the mRNA vax should have been taken off day one when he came in. That's just me. But here's a clip of him kind of talking through it with Chris Cuomo, who I don't really like very much, but at least he's hearing out and sitting in front of RFK.
Let me ask you, are you going to make any investments in long COVID and vaccine injuries in terms of coming up with treatments and data to help clinicians, help their patients?
Yeah, that's going to be one of our priority focuses. We already have a division at NIH that is devoted to studying long COVID and to figuring out cures and to study, and we're incorporating an agency within CDC that is going to specialize in vaccine injuries. Oh, those are things that are priorities for me, and also Lyme disease. These are priorities for the American people. More and more people are suffering from these injuries. And we are committed to having gold standard science to make sure that we can figure out what the treatments are and that we can deliver the best treatments possible to the American people.
Lyme disease was MK Ultra. It was set up by the DOD and CIA and those folks. Yeah.
Did we cover that? We covered that one before, didn't we?
Yeah.
Isn't that what you get from ticks?
We talked about, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not just any tick. It's the ones that are on the deer. And but I'll tell you this, there hasn't been a case of, unless they've had one in the last 2 years since I checked, there hasn't been a proven case of Lyme disease in Vanderburgh County since 2010.
Wow. It's weird because I know it's more prevalent in other areas.
Yeah.
Is that that's not the thing, the issue where you can no longer eat red meat, is it?
No, that's alpha-gal.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Yeah, alpha-gal is a problem that comes from ticks that feed off of cattle and other mammals, and then they get on a human and they mix in all the alpha galactosidase that is in animal blood into humans. Now, primates, which includes humans, are the only mammals who do not have that in their blood. And that's why it's a problem with humans. I've had dozens of patients with alpha-gal, because believe me, there are a lot of ticks around. They're going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. When I used to walk my dog through a certain part of East Evansville, one or the other of us would come home with ticks, and usually it was me because the dog had been given medicine to prevent the ticks from getting on him.
You should borrow one of the dog's collars so that you don't get the ticks.
It's not the collars. it's the stuff you give them every month.
Oh, the collars for fleas, yeah.
Yeah. But I even pulled a deer tick off of me one time. It was a little bitty thing, and I wondered why this little thing was on the side of my leg, and I got down and looked at it, and it was sure enough a deer tick, and I pulled it out like you're supposed to so that you don't leave the jaws in there, and I took it to the gas stove and
popped him?
Popped him.
Nice.
But it was tiny. It was probably a tenth the size of my small fingernail. But the other ticks that you get, they're about the size of your little finger, and you can see them. This one I could feel because I just moved my arm along this left side of my thigh, and I said, I wonder what that is. And then I looked, and it was a little black tick.
I think we're trying to find new conspiracy theories, right? I don't. This isn't a new one, but I think this is
38-0.
Well, this is one I know you and I have talked about, but there is an ongoing conspiracy that hasn't been properly addressed. You and I, we have shared a bunch of clips. You, me, and Travis have shared a bunch of clips of Dr. John Campbell. I find him to be a fantastic researcher, and he's finding things and kind of plucking them out for everyone to kind of inspect and look at. And I guess my question here is, Doc and Travis, why doesn't local national media think stories like this particular one are important? One of the lab leak versus wet market conspiracy theories is not a conspiracy theory.
No,
it's actually conspiracy fact. Mm-hmm. The virus came from a lab. The lab is a lab that engineers illnesses, flus, coronavirus. They geoengineer. They've used gain-of-function technology, basically, which makes the virus strain itself more likely to keep it reinventing itself as it goes from one body to the next. Most flus and most things will naturally peter out over time because natural immunity happens, herd immunity happens.
Right.
You'll get a virus, you'll get the illness. I may get a little bit of it and get enough exposure into it, and my body sees it as a warning, signal of we got to attack this thing, and then it builds my immunity against it.
Sure.
Versus getting the whole thing. I mean, that's how the flu vaccines are supposed to work. But there's another thing here that he points out, and I don't think enough people are talking about it, so I wanted to talk it up today. The world has experienced, since scientists began playing around with dangerous pathogens in laboratories, the world has experienced 4 or 5 pandemics. 1977 Russian flu almost certainly was a research mishap. And what he shares in this particular, there's a bunch of clips in this one. We could listen to like 6 minutes of it, but we're going to listen to a little bit of it and break it down because there's another, he's got something that we're not paying attention to. I think we should be paying attention to.
Of course, it might blow you up. Would it blow you up? That's what's going on now. Still matters. Lessons have not been learnt, it would appear. And you'd hope that prestigious scientific journals would have learnt not to reward such risky research by publishing it. Why haven't we learnt our lesson? Well, if we admitted it's risky now, it must have always been risky. So if people in authority or mainstream media said, just a minute, this is a bit risky, isn't it? then someone could say, well, yeah, but wasn't it risky in 2020? Wasn't it risky in 2019? And all this time this research was going on when you kept stum about it. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why it is. Who can possibly know? This is just speculation, of course. And perhaps we were misled on purpose. Perhaps, again, understatement, perhaps, by the New York Times. So when the New York Times says perhaps we were misled, perhaps this is understatement. When Wuhan experienced an outbreak of a novel coronavirus related to ones found in bats, and researchers soon noticed the pathogen had the same rare genetic features that the Eco Health Alliance and the Wuhan researchers had proposed inserting into bat coronaviruses. Don't take my word for it, there's the reference. You would think the Eco Health Alliance would sound the alarm. So we've got the same virus now, because the genome was published quite early on, once the Chinese Wuhan Institute of Virology was rumbled. You would think that Eco Health Alliance would say, just a minute, heck, just a minute. This is just like the paper we proposed. What did they say? Did they say anything? You would think the Eco Health Alliance would sound the alarm far and wide. It did not. And this is the sickening thing about this, really quite sickening. It's only through freedom of information and requests and things that we don't know anything. Otherwise, we'd know diddly squat about this, I'm sure. Were it not for public records requests, leaks and subpoenas, the world might never have learnt about the troubling similarities between what could easily have been going on inside the lab, that's the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and what was spreading through the city. So only because people have done freedom of information requests, subpoenas and leaks, and don't take my word for it, check out the references. So that brings us on to this paper. Now, this screen I'm showing you now, believe it or not,
for those that can't see it, it's Nature Medicine.
Live from the internet. This paper has not been retracted. Incredible. This paper has not been retracted. So you can go to the paper. You can see who the lead author is there, for example. That's Christian G. Anderson. At that time, I don't know if he still is, Department of Immunology and Microbiology. California. La Jolla, California. Anyway, this paper has not been retracted. Let's look at something about what this paper says. Now, the proximal origin of SARS coronavirus 2 is the paper. Nature Medicine, you know, I had assumed in 2020 that Nature Medicine was up there with the Lancet, the New England Journal of Medicine, Journal of the American Medical Society, Association, JAMA. And Nature Medicine hasn't retracted this paper. Complete loss of faith. I've got complete loss of faith. I think they've lost faith, but I've lost faith in these journals. And that is incredibly important because these journals were axiomatic. If it was in a journal of this caliber, you believed it reflected the current state of knowledge. Now, what are we supposed to base our medical decision making on, for example? Becomes rather tricky, doesn't it?
Just a little bit more.
Anyway, that
Roy,
was.
I want to have you respond to this.
They said this: we do not believe that any type of laboratory-based scenario is plausible. Don't you, indeed?
Yeah.
But wait a minute. But we later learned through congressional subpoenas of their Slack conversations, which is kind of like a WhatsApp thing, I think. Don't use it myself, but it's a communication platform. That while the scientists publicly said the scenario was implausible, privately, many of its authors considered the scenario to be not just plausible, but likely. So they said one thing in the paper, and they were saying something else privately. Imagine that. Dear me. Don't take my word for it. There's the references. Right. Even evolutionary biologist Christian Anderson, the lead author, Slack message. So remember, it said, we do not believe that any type of laboratory-based scenario is plausible.
All right, Roy. Why is this important?
It's important because it shows the craziness of putting stuff in papers when you knew that they might be wrong.
Well, and how are doctors and our public health officials supposed to make good decisions and do better next time if these papers and these authors don't course correct quickly? Like, basically, effectively, you don't own anything. You haven't said we were wrong. Whoops. We're going to do some more research on this and figure out what went wrong so it doesn't happen again. This signal has not been sent to anyone, as far as I can see.
Well, some of it's turning around. You know, the New York Times came out with an article that says, we were wrong. We were wrong with all of this.
How big of a paper was that?
It was the New York Times.
I mean, I'm talking about there should have been like stacks of papers with countless articles they've been wrong about. Yeah, I heard that. I actually heard that New York Times had owned up on part of it. But again, it's such a small... I mean, most people don't even find New York Times really relevant anymore. You probably heard... I don't know if do you follow New York Times or did you just hear that in a clip?
No.
I heard it in a clip. I heard that.
But I actually saw it in the New York Times, but I don't... I try to stay away... The New York Times comes to our house, but I try to stay away from it. The other person who resides in the house reads it front to back every Sunday.
Is that the one that got rid of our bumper sticker and everything?
Oh, no.
No, she didn't get rid of the bumper sticker.
She hid it because there was a friend.
Yeah, you had friends coming over. She hid it.
Oh, yeah, she hid it when we had friends coming over.
Anyway,
I want to pivot to some better news here, and part of the reason why we're digging into this and continuing to tell people locally and regionally about this is because you don't hear it in local media. The second part of it is to, if these things are true, we don't want it to take 2 to 3 years for you to learn the next thing that's important and true. Doc has talked about it till he's blue in the face, talking about increased myocarditis, increased turbo cancers, increased whatever that have just magically started happening since 2020. The media, the same ones that have lied and not told the truth about COVID-19 or the vaccine schedules, haven't made this pivot at all. So, but the reason why I want to keep coming back to spotlights and cases that are happening with people curing cancer on their own through non-traditional treatments, and or if you have some kind of heart issue or blood issue, I'm searching like hell to try to find ways to clear the virus out and to clear the spike proteins out, whatever. I'm not a person that's qualified to do that, but I do have a pretty good feel and read on following the people that are actively going after it. So I'm keeping a close eye on it so I can share it with you and share it with Travis, and then we could share it with the world. And, it just so happens that some of these things come out simultaneously. This is a really good clip, and I wanted to share just because this is not something I've heard on local media, and I don't know why. Because I think, good news, our medical and pharma companies basically have 80% of the budget in our media, and I think there's a reason why they don't hear stories or tell us stories like this. But
according to the result of this study right here that you can see up on your screen, researchers, for the first time, have found a treatment that completely removed the rectal cancer in every patient that participated in the trial, meaning that every single patient in the study is in remission with no chemo, no radiation, and no surgery. And even though...
Before I go on, just so you know, if you haven't heard of that New England Journal of Medicine date, if you didn't see it, June of 2022. Okay? So
the study was small. The results, they're not only heartening, but also, according to the lead researcher in the study, they open up a potential new corridor at fighting cancer, which they will be quickly expanding to things like stomach, pancreatic, as well as bladder cancer. Furthermore, the therapy that they're testing, which is monoclonal antibodies, they have none of the toxic side effects of other popular cancer treatments, especially the ones that are currently being used at scale. And so with all these positive elements lining up here one after the other, let's go through the details of the study together. To start with, this paper, it was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, and it's titled PD-1 Blockade and Mismatch Repair, Deficient, Locally Advanced Rectal Cancer.
What kind of headline is that?
Yeah.
Study was led by researchers over at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Center here in New York, and they were testing the viability of monoclonal antibodies as a treatment for people suffering from advanced forms of rectal cancer. Specifically, in this study group, the researchers had 12 patients, with the median age being 54 and with 62% of them being women. And these patients were all suffering from advanced rectal cancer, specifically mismatch repair deficient stage 2 or stage 3 rectal adenocarcinomas, which is a type of cancer. And normally people with this type of cancer would undergo debilitating treatments such as chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, or even in extreme cases, they would have to be fitted with colostomy bags. However, the patients in this particular study did not undergo any of those treatments, and instead, they were given a certain type of monoclonal antibody every 3 weeks for a period of 6 months. And according to the results section of the study, all the patients, every single one of them, experienced a complete clinical response. They went into remission, and they went from having advanced cancer to instead having no trace of tumors. Here's specifically what the study found. Quote, a total of 12 patients have completed treatment with dostarlimab, which is the monoclonal antibody, and have undergone at least 6 months of follow-up. All 12 patients, 100% with a 95% confidence interval, had a clinical complete response with no evidence of tumor on magnetic resonance imaging. At the time of this report, no patients had received chemoradiotherapy or undergone surgery, and no cases of progression or recurrence had been reported during follow-up, ranging from 6 months to 25 months after treatment. No adverse events of grade 3 or higher have been reported, meaning that as a result of the administered monoclonal antibodies, the doctors were not able to see any evidence of any tumors among 100% of the trial participants, which, according to Dr. Andrea Sursik, who was one of the lead researchers in this particular trial, is something that they have never seen before. Here's specifically what she said during an interview over on CNN. Quote, it's absolutely incredible. We didn't expect it. We've certainly never seen this before. It's really what, cancer doctors' dreams are made of, to see a response like this, such incredible efficacy with really almost no toxicity. The patients are feeling great after the treatment with completely normal body function in something like rectal cancer, where normally our therapies are really quite toxic. So it's absolutely incredible. Then, in terms of how these monoclonal antibodies actually work within the patient's own body, she explained that essentially, they unlock the body's ability to heal itself. According to the results of...
So we talk about studies, and 12 is not a big number.
No,
but 12 of 12 is pretty significant. 12 of 12 is not a coincidence. It's not an accident. It's not. You can't dismiss it.
No, you can't dismiss it. But really, 12 out of 12. Who knows that if you had 24, it'd be 12 out of 24.
Okay, so why haven't we done that instantaneously? Why isn't this going far and wide? Would I be in a trial group?
Yeah,
I totally would.
Well, you have to have cancer first.
Well, you have to have cancer, but they're going to say, okay, you have to do chemo, you have to do radiation, you have to do potentially surgery, and you have to do this within the next 6 months. Well, how about this? Give me this therapy right now, and I'll be a test dummy. There's been no negative effect. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and then I got to go down the rest of it. I mean, I have to think this monoclonal antibody isn't something that we find on Mars, and it's so rare that we can't come up with another batch.
They make monoclonal antibodies all the time. At the beginning of COVID, we were taking plasma from people who had COVID and got over it, and giving it back to the people who were really, really sick, and it worked terrifically. Mm-hmm. And the problem was that it was very expensive and very difficult to get that monoclonal antibody available. And all of a sudden, Big Pharma comes in and says, oh, we got remdesivir, we got this, we got that. And they dropped doing monoclonal antibodies for people with COVID. And I, for one, felt like that they should push for that. But, you know, no pharmaceutical companies came forward and said, we're going to push for monoclonal antibodies and we're going to have them, we'll get them to you and all of that. They didn't. There were people being turned away from the hospital who wanted to donate their plasma so that other people could have it. They'd be turned away because it was difficult and it was expensive. And then I'm sure that these monoclonal antibodies that are used for rectal cancer, they were very expensive. I don't know where the money came from. But you can bet that if it didn't come from a pharmaceutical company, that this is going to be pushed down and not coming forward, because that's how pharmaceutical companies thrive, is by putting out tests like that.
Buying up your research and then putting it away.
I'm gonna give you some friction back here, and it's not to put pressure on you necessarily, but just to raise the kind of the issue itself. You said, are you assuming the monoclonal antibody must be expensive? And let me just finish my whole question here or statement. I know they use some monoclonal antibodies on COVID with very good efficacy.
They did, and they were very expensive and very difficult.
What is expensive compared to chemo, radiation, surgery, and potential death? I mean, if we're weighing one to the other here,
because all of those put money in the people who provide those. Whereas if you're taking your own monoclonal antibodies, it may not be that expensive. It may take, $15,000, $20,000 to come up with one dose of monoclonal antibody. But, the rectal surgeons, the oncologists, the radiologists who provide the radiation treatment, it's taken away their livelihood, and that's why it's not pushed that way.
Okay,
so I'm not, you're not beating up on me.
No. I'm just trying to give you the friction so we can talk through this thing, because if we are giving ginormous stacks of money to HHS, Kennedy just went through and started cleaning house there. Why shouldn't the HHS, from the top people in our system that we go to for these types of things, why wouldn't they take over the investigation or the research on it? If it's a potential cure for cancer, how much is too much? If you're spending money at that level to potentially cure cancer, if your job at the HHS is to look out for the health of all people, including a large chunk of people in our world that have cancer, and especially now that cancers have jumped up tremendously because of something that you yourself, not you, Dr. Roy, have pushed upon us, meaning a jab that's pushing turbo cancers up. Why shouldn't the HHS take that under their... they should own that now.
I think they're probably working on that, but you got to remember that government doesn't work the same way that a solo practice would. If I were in a solo practice treating people like that, I'd figure out a way to get monoclonal antibody anytime. So, and the way the monoclonal antibodies work is they let the body take over and kill the cancer cells. So that's it. I have no idea how much it was costing for each one. But that was in 2022, and when that was published, and they haven't cured cancer yet. One of the conspiracy theories is that somebody found a true cure for cancer back in the 1980s, and it was completely pushed away by the pharmacy companies because it was stealing bread out of their children's mouths.
Well,
So
just
I've got an.
go ahead. If you
I was saying I have an article here about the specific thing, but it was in the COVID-19 variant, and it says that the cost per dose was about $2,000
of the monoclonal antibody.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they took those off the market at some point because they had to push the vaccine, right?
Sure.
Because the monoclonal antibodies
Well,
were
the vaccine
being successful.
and the expensive drugs that they use, remdesivir.
Yeah, so I just did I don't know where I searched Grok, and it said retail price without insurance monoclonal antibody treatments can range from $1,000 to $100,000. Cancer therapies, like, I can't pronounce it, but it's Herceptin is the, I guess, generic.
Yeah.
And Rituxan can cost $5,000 to $10,000 per infusion.
Yeah.
And spanning months and years, potentially totaling $50,000 to $150,000 for treatment. So if we're just looking at one cost or the other,
it doesn't cost that much. But look who's pushing the drugs.
Well, it doesn't cost that much, Doc, but it also, what's the negative effect of monoclonal antibodies? I've not heard really any negative side effect.
You can get a host versus infusion problem, and you lose all your antibodies.
So yeah, you just said that. I've got this same article. It says on average it actually costs $95 to $200 to manufacture a single gram of the antibody, which a single gram is what's put in each dose. It says that cost does not include research, development, or the cost of infusion into the patient. It says the manufacturing cost is so high because antibodies need to be built inside of mammalian cells to be kept alive.
Yes.
So it's exactly what you just said. That's why I kind of said that you led right into that.
Right.
It says this means the cells need to be a body temperature home, they need to have a body temperature home, fluids, nutrients, and cell signaling molecules that say, yes, keep making antibodies.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so that's why it does, so my number was 2,000 in this article. This was for the COVID-19 variant, not a cancer variant. But so the cancer variant may cost more, but
well,
anyway.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah. That's all I
But
got.
anyway.
Okay.
Chadwick?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we can kind of pivot out of this part we're in here. But I guess just what I want to kind of have a roundabout summary is it seems like, why is it that things seem so obvious at some level, and yet our media and our government doesn't find it important? I don't know.
My mother-in-law had pancreatic cancer. This would have been perfect for her, and she didn't pass away until after the study was published.
Wait a minute. They only tried this on stage 2 and 3 rectal cancer.
Well, but then that article or whoever was talking about that went on to say that it could very easily have been changed over for gall. What all it was.
That's his opinion. Nobody's done that yet.
No, but I mean,
it's speculation.
Well, she would have tried it.
Yeah,
she would have tried anything. She's dead now, so I mean, there's really no.
Yeah, there would have been no harm.
No,
beyond what was already the harm.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I've got one of my nurse practitioners has a patient who chose the ivermectin Fenbin, and he's proceeding with that. He's got lung cancer, and I don't know how it's going now. I haven't talked to the lady about the nurse practitioner about that.
Can you follow up and see how that goes?
Please.
Was he doing the other? Was he doing other stuff?
Yeah.
Also, or just
he was
that?
on everything.
Okay. So he's doing chemo, radiation, and
no, he wasn't on chemo and radiation. He chose those instead of.
Okay.
And it's only been about a month on that. So but the type of cancer that he had in his lungs, it's pretty turbo.
Was he vaccinated? Do you know?
I asked, and she said no.
Said he wasn't vaccinated?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, any cancer can be a turbo cancer. It doesn't matter.
I was just curious.
Pancreatic cancer is one of the ones that kills you quick.
Yep. Becky, my mother-in-law had from diagnosed. They were very quick. They put a port in and she died about 2 weeks after that port. So I bet she passed away about...
It was the port that killed her.
2 months. It probably, well, no, but it was probably 2 months after she was diagnosed that she died.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we don't know how long she had it before then.
That's right. And pancreatic cancer is a real bad one because it kills you quick. And some people might say that that's a good thing because you don't suffer for very long. Whereas the people with stage 4 breast cancer can live for 8 or 10 years.
Did we go through clips last week? I know I've seen some things that they were talking about, some really positive signals of non-typical treatments having an effect on pancreatic cancer, which is typically just a pure death sentence. I don't know if we shared something.
Nothing was shared.
Most of those were not pancreatic cancer. They were, like lung cancer and colon cancer, all of those. And, the guy was saying that they've been alive for 40 months. Well, that's a long time.
It's a long time for pancreatic. Usually you're
pancreatic
gone.
Cancer, usually you are.
Isn't that usually you pancreatic cancer is like 6 months or is kind of the cap?
6 to 12 months.
6 to 12. Okay.
In the ones that I've had have all been dead within a year. And brain cancer is the same way. If you got a glioblastoma, it's probably going to kill you within 10, 12 months.
That's what took the professor, Mr. Neil Peart.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Was it pancreatic?
No, brain.
It was brain cancer.
What'd you just say? What was the
I said
word?
brain.
No, the...
glioblastoma.
Yes, that.
Yeah.
That is what it was.
All right, I got another good news kind of clip, and I'm just going to share this
good
because...
news, bad news?
Well, it's all good. I think it's all good news. It's been a minute. I think I had this clip before the last episode, and I didn't play it. I thought it was relevant. It's only 2 minutes. But again, I feel it's important for people to know because cancer is rising, and some people are just hesitant to talk to anybody except for their doctor, and they don't, it's like, well, he's my doctor. He's got to be the person. Well, do your own research. Listen to people that you may not agree with. Listen to people, or at least do research on people that your doctor may not necessarily agree with, and then use informed consent. And if you don't like what the doctor's telling you, the doctor's not open to listening, go to another doctor and have conversation with that doctor. And, the thing about it is...
The problem with that is that it takes
a long time to get...
to get into another doctor.
Yeah.
If you don't like one oncology group in this town, there's only one other.
Yeah, that's true.
And it may take you, 2 or 3 months to get in there.
Guess what kind of protocol I'd be doing in that 2 to 3 months?
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
Me too.
Let's listen to this clip.
You mentioned some repurposed drugs and so forth for use with cancer that are not generally known.
Yeah, so there is a group called REDO, which looks at repurposed drugs for the use of cancer. So they list about 250 different drugs, believe it or not, that have shown in experimental models to have activity against cancer cells. In the book or monograph that I wrote, I reduced them down to the 30 that I thought was the most effective. And so there are really good studies showing that both in a test tube, in a animal model, as well as in patients, that it has anti-cancer activity, and there's a list of these. So vitamin D is number one, but then we have melatonin, we have green tea, the anti-diabetic medication metformin actually is a very powerful anti-cancer drug, and then we have the antiparasitic drugs. There's mebendazole, ivermectin, that have activity against cancer cells.
I was going to say the horse dewormer.
So believe it or not, the horse dewormer is very effective against certain cancers. And so we know of cases of patients who had solid tumors who were given the horse dewormer and together with some other drugs. So, as I said, it's not one magical drug. It's a combination. It's a combination approach. But
okay, I'm going to in just 1 second, I'm going to let Dr. Roy make a plug here on ivermectin because he does have that available. Before we do that, one of our longtime listeners and a very good friend of mine wanted to add his own anecdotal plug for ivermectin as a prophylactic. He said he was taking it according to the FLCCC, which is, I think, the IMATH protocol, which was Dr. Peter McCullough's very early on in COVID. Before I think it started really even before the vaccine was being pushed, but the people that were anti-vaccine definitely went down this road. He said he went with the protocols from the minute they were published until the end of February 2023, and despite my wife having COVID 3 times during that period, working in nursing homes, he never caught it. On April 19th, 2023, I caught COVID for the first time. For the first time. It's not science, just my experience. So dealing with a cold right now, took ivermectin just in case, and it really had no effect that I can tell. Right. I just take it if I ever suspect a virus, just in case. And so Dr. Roy, I think, warns against this, so I'm not asking him to say that, but there is a lot of that chatter. We listened to some clips a couple of weeks ago that said, if I'm getting ready to go on an airplane and, whatever, I'll just take it prophylactically and take it in advance.
Yeah.
Dr. Roy's not going to tell you to do that, but go out and do your own research, whatever. And Dr. Roy's got some ivermectin here, and if you need it, let him share that with you.
Yeah. Ivermectin. It comes in little blister packs, and it's 12 milligrams per tablet. When it first came out, when we were first using it, we could only get tablets in 3 milligrams. So we would have to give 4 tablets to the patient for 5 days. And the cost went up after that. Nowadays, you can get enough ivermectin to treat 2 people for 5 days with COVID, and it'll cost you $30, $3 a tablet. I have plenty of this on hand. If you'd like to purchase any, then you can contact us. You can contact me on Twitter. X is Air Rescue Doc, and just DM me, and I'll talk to you about it. And I've had quite a bit of success. When I started using ivermectin to treat COVID, I was kind of leery about doing it, but I went ahead and followed the format that a physician in Marseille, France had done with like 9,000 patients. And the vast majority of those patients did not even have to be hospitalized. I've treated 150 people with ivermectin for COVID, and not a single one of them has died, and not a single one of them has had to be hospitalized. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to be that way, because you can get sick real quick and have to go to the hospital. But for, bog-present types of COVID, it works very well. And like I said, you can get enough for 2 people to treat this. The people who are using this for prophylaxis are typically taking 2 ivermectin tablets a week of the 12 milligrams that I have. So you would burn through one of these little plastic things in about 5 weeks if you're taking it that way. I don't recommend that. Nobody has come to me and said, I had 10,000 patients that we put on ivermectin and not a single one of them didn't get COVID. Not a single one of them got COVID. So I just don't know. If you'd like to try it, then I've got some ivermectin that I can sell to you for a very reasonable price. Before he became deputy head of the FBI, Bongino had a podcast, and he was selling 3 milligram tablets of ivermectin for $3 each. Well, I'm selling 12 milligram tablets for $3 each. So
there you go.
There you go.
Thanks, Doc. I appreciate that. Before we pivot into something way out of the realm of what we've been talking about, we're gonna hit on AI and some things that me and Travis have dug into a little bit. And before we do that, I've got 2 videos that I feel are super relevant. One is kind of an old topic that we hit on. Doc, we talked about statins and high cholesterol, and I think that's another narrative that's really evolving, meaning cholesterol was labeled at some point in the medical realm and the pharma realm to be quote unquote bad, and statins became a very significant treatment protocol.
Big bucks
to quote unquote lower cholesterol. And the only reason you would want to lower cholesterol if there was a significant positive outcome for that. So statins is one of those that I came to you very early on, and I've said I've always been skeptical about this. I've just heard too much, and I'm skeptical by nature about these things. But there's a really good clip, and I want to play a little bit of it just because I think Jimmy Dore does a very good job on this. And Jimmy Dore, just so y'all know, he's a comedian. He's not a doctor, but he's also has been a very liberal Democrat. And what I'm finding myself aligning with a lot of people that I don't always agree with politically when it comes to typical things, not medical things, but we are aligning in these realms when it comes to medical is not about left or right. It's not political. It shouldn't be political. No. But let me I got this clip here somewhere. Just give me a minute. I got another one from him that was really good. And he's talking about skin cancer, and we'll hopefully get to that one too. Because there's just so much good news coming out. And again, it's something that I don't think is really being talked about enough in our media. And I think if our media, here's the thing, what most, when the people say local media people and the people that only watch local media don't know what they don't know. And so local doctors watch the news, and if they start seeing things pop up like this in local news as it's a big thing, maybe that might have them do a little digging and go a little deeper. I mean, these are the things that I just don't understand when I hear it. So I guess got to call BS on it. Sorry, it's taking me a second to find this. There we go. Don't play it yet because I thought I had it queued up and I don't. There we go. Don't turn my screen on just yet until I don't know why it's not. There we go.
I have the volume down right now.
Kills you, and the kind of cancer you get. Remember you were scammed on skin cancer? Turns out sun's actually good for you. And if you don't get enough sun, you get the kind of cancer that actually kills you. And the kind of cancer you get from the sun is not as deadly.
This is an ode to Dr. Jack Cruz.
So this is from Pierre Corey. He says, to sell statins, we were told cholesterol damages arteries. In reality, it repairs arterial injury. Yeah, it's not the cholesterol that damages your artery. It actually repairs when your artery has a rupture. Statins, which they want everybody on statins, don't prevent death and give 20% of its users muscle, liver, and nerve damage.
Job creation.
Did you know that? If you know someone on a statin, please read this. This is from Midwestern Doc Substack. So Robert F. Kennedy actually tweeted out, brave dissident doctors like Pierre Corey can help clear away the smoke of corporate profiteering so that we can see clearly the causes and solutions to the chronic disease epidemic. The great cholesterol scam and the dangers of statins. That's what this is called. Get this. So in the 1960s and 70s, a debate emerged about what causes heart disease. On one side was a guy named John Yudkin, effectively argued that sugar being added to our food by the processed food industry was the chief culprit of heart disease. On the other side was someone named Ancel Keys, who attacked Yudkin's work, argued that it was due to saturated fat and cholesterol. And now we know the rest of the story, don't we? That it's actually sugar, and fat and cholesterol aren't bad for you, but let's read on.
Wait, it says a case can also be made mass adoption of vegetable oil.
A case can also be made that the mass adoption of vegetable oil leads to this increase in heart disease. Well, that's what we were just talking about, seed oils. Ancel Keys won this debate, the guy who said it was fat and cholesterol. Yudkin, the guy who said it was sugar, he was largely dismissed, and Keys became the nutritional dogma.
What are they, the president of fucking, if something causes heart, are they the president of that? Why are two guys debate the end-all be-all?
Kurt Metzger.
Yeah, he's been on Rogan a lot.
Well,
Yeah.
let's read on, Kurt. A large part of Keys' victory was based on his study of 7 countries. He studied Italy, Greece, former Yugoslavia, Netherlands, Finland, America, and Japan, which showed that as saturated fat consumption increased, heart disease increased in a linear fashion. So there was that correlation. They made it into causation. However, what many don't know, and as this study is still frequently cited, is that this result was simply a product of the country that guy chose. If that guy would have chose different countries like Finland, Israel, Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, France, and Sweden, the opposite would have been found. So he just chose the countries that aligned with his hypothesis.
All right, so
that's like the old "tell me what you need the data to say, and I'll make sure it says it."
Yeah,
Yeah.
So again,
Show me the man and I'll find the crimes.
Yeah. there you go.
So I guess I kind of want to show clips like this because it's how many people are actually going to find this and hear this and be able to actually put history behind the narratives that we've been lied to about. I mean, we've been told forever that fat and cholesterol was bad. They sold us crappy butter that wasn't butter. They told us eggs were bad. They told us all these different things over the years that turn out to just be the opposite of truth.
Yep.
And it's based on money.
So, Doc,
Sure it
do
is.
you agree with that about the
Oh, yeah.
about the statins and cholesterol? Okay.
Well, I took statins for a long time, not because my cholesterol was elevated, but it was higher than I would liked it to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So instead of being 156, my cholesterol was 120.
Well, I'll just say there's signals now that are coming out that really isn't a marker. Those numbers they gave you, even the doctor, that you were trying to stay within yourself because of what you were told, were not really that helpful. It was
And I never went on a diet that didn't include butter and eggs. We haven't had margarine in our house for 15 years or longer.
But you had it in there for a minute. Again, based on
Not really.
Well, see, my family did.
Yeah.
So my mom and dad, or whoever, was like, well, they tell us that this is better, so we're going to do this instead of butter.
Patty still uses seed oils sometimes to cook things, but I've got 1.75 pounds of tallow in my refrigerator. So I use that, and I use coconut oil or olive oil. And that's it.
We're heavy olive oil users ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so again, I found this on. I found Vigilant Fox to be a really great source. They queue things up. They queue things up really nicely. So, I mean, if you have time and you want to look at these things on your own, feel free to do that. But part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast is just to put all these things together in one package that I think are supportive to Dr. Roy being here and us trying to break through that local. having a local doctor that's willing to see these things and hear these things and like, well, that makes sense. Or maybe you need to look into this a little more. I don't fully agree with that. And, let's push back here where it needs to push back. And
that's why I was in a solo practice, because I knew that if I got in one of the larger health systems, that I wouldn't be able to think that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, and unfortunately, and again, people that have been listening to us for a while, most doctors are now, I don't want to say forced into, one of the practicing for two of the big hospitals, but it doesn't seem like there's any independence anymore, and that's really a problem.
Certainly not in the primary care. The general surgeons, vascular surgeons they work for both systems, but they are not controlled by both systems. There's one orthopedic group that is not, they are associated with one of the groups, one of the health systems, but they are not owned by that group. And they actually just mentioned that they are joining up with another group elsewhere in the state, and they're going to be like 100 orthopedic surgeons in this group all over the state, Fort Wayne, Indianapolis, and most of the north, plus Evansville, which is the southwest.
So while it sounds to me those groups that aren't completely centralized and attached to the medical system or the two local medical hospitals, I still do believe they have room for improvement. And I can say this with certainty, and I'm going to start by saying the local doctors and nurses and everybody that we've dealt with my wife's condition, she had to have surgery, or have been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Done a great job, great bedside manner, explaining things well. I think they're missing the boat just a little bit, though. And the only reason I'm saying that is because, and it's not their fault, but like nothing was mentioned about potentially methylene blue, if that's a help for surgery. Nothing was really talked about with vitamin D exposure and having high redox potential to help with surgery and recovery. I mean, I think there are
Didn't I put her on vitamin D?
No, they did not.
Didn't I put
Well, you
me?
did, but you remember but again, that is not, they are not talking about that. Yeah. I feel like from a rehabilitation standpoint, I just feel like, I'm not again saying this to be overly critical. I'm just saying there's room for improvement there, even though they're not centralized and attached to those bigger systems. I think they could get a little more quantum in their treatment.
Yeah.
So somebody, one of the groups I am going to have a little fun with here is oncology and dermatologists and skin cancer doctors. Jimmy Dore mentioned this clip in the previous clip. This was from April. Oh, this is a little bit older. No, the clip that he shows there is from April 2024. But this is a really good one. Let's listen.
Midwestern Doctor, you should, on Substack. Unbelievable, all the stuff.
Yeah, Midwestern Doctor's very good too. Thank Dr. Roy. You follow him, don't you?
It says Dermatology's Disastrous War Against the Sun, The Forgotten Side of Skin Health and the Necessity of Sunlight by the Midwestern Doctor. Okay, you ready? Hold on to your, because here it comes. There's going to be several. I'm going to have to break this up into 3 different segments, which I will do on Monday. So I'm just going to do one segment today. Skin cancers are by far the most commonly diagnosed cancer in the United States. So to prevent them, the public is constantly told, avoid the sun. You've heard that, avoid the sun, right?
Yeah.
However, while the relatively benign skin cancers are caused by sun exposure, benign skin cancers, which is what this is caused by sun exposure. The ones responsible for most skin cancer deaths are due to the lack of sunlight.
Why, lack of vitamin D or something?
This is unfortunate because sunlight is arguably the most important nutrient for the human body, as avoiding it doubles one's rate of dying and significantly increases their risk of cancer. The exact opposite. Huh, Misha? Is this not blowing your mind?
I always thought it was like how Caucasian you are versus how, I thought it was like a sliding scale.
Well, I'm telling you right here, Kurt, the important thing we need to focus on here is that, take Kurt away, is that avoiding it doubles one's rate of dying. Avoiding the sun doubles your rate of dying and significantly increases your risk of cancer.
Stop it for a second. Explain Australia.
We've talked about that a bunch of times.
Australia has the highest rate of melanoma in the world. And it's because they all get out in the sun, or a lot of them get out in the sun.
Yeah, I think there's something more going on there myself. And this seems to be a varying, there's different signals going on. We've talked about Dr. Jack Kruse a lot. I think it's important, the amount of sun and how, getting burned, going out in the middle of the day and getting burned is not.
That's not good.
That's not good. I think what you and I try to do is when the sun comes up, getting that early infrared, that first light, it really is the best for absorbing vitamin D. And the last light, it also clicks in your circadian rhythm, and it turns on your body's ability to heal itself in the mitochondria.
Right.
And so, while this is a little narrow, it does overlap some with what Dr. Jack is talking about. So I'm not saying, and Dr. Roy is not saying, run out and get in the sun as much as you can, but it is, to me, I'm pointing out kind of the hypocrisy of what we've been taught again over and over. It's been beaten in my kid's head. Like my wife would want to throw him in a pool of sunscreen versus going out and getting some natural light and building up a base. We used to talk about base tan when we were kids and going out and being out more. And, you're out all the time. You're out in the wintertime, so you're not ever really pale. The sun's just much weaker, and you might, not have a full tan. But then springtime comes, and you're getting a little more intense sun. And, you live closer to the equator. You're getting more intense sun most of the time around the year.
Yeah.
But to your point of Australia, I mean, that is a signal. It's something that we need to talk about. But the other countries in Costa Rica and South America don't have high risk, big spikes in skin cancer, and they're right on the equator. And so I don't know what the reason for that is, and you bring that up.
I think it's what the guy was saying earlier. It's the amount of melanin in your skin, and
Australians aren't born there.
Australians came to Australia, except for the people who were already living there. They came from Northern Europe, and anybody that is,
they came because they were thrown there because they were criminals. Right?
They were sent there.
Prison island.
Exile island. Yeah,
and they were fair skinned. A lot of them, and same goes for Finland and for Norway and for Sweden. And anyone from Northern Europe has very pale skin in comparison to people who live in South America or Costa Rica, that sort of thing. So I think that probably has a lot to do with it. That and the fact that the Australians go out and lay on the beaches all the time and get sunburns, and then they come up with a melanoma and they say, "Oh, gee, what happened?"
I'm taking note here. I want to do more research on, and I might send you some messages about doing a little more research about skin cancer in Australia.
Yeah,
and some, I'm sure there need to be some studies. There's some studies.
I looked that up. I've got a internet friend who is a plastic surgeon in Australia, and she's, taken off thousands of melanomas.
And melanoma, that is the malignant.
That's the bad one.
Yeah. Okay. Let's listen a little more of the clip because it's pretty juicy.
Even because when I lived in New York, you live like a vampire.
Yeah.
And everybody has a deficiency.
And now everybody's
it's a common urban problem.
That's right.
Of a severe vitamin D deficiency.
Well, like in the 1800s, it was rickets.
Yep. Yeah, right.
And
it's like boat diseases and shit.
So a strong case can be made that this dynamic was a result of the dermatology profession, with the help of a top PR firm, rebranding themselves to skin cancer fighters, something which allowed them to become one of the highest paying medical specialties in existence. This happened in the 80s.
Not true.
They hired a Wall Street advertising firm. Unfortunately, despite the billions that is put into fighting each year skin cancer, there has been no substantial change in the number of skin cancer deaths. None. No substantial change. So all this skin cancer awareness and all this and wear your sunblock. By the way, sunblock, a lot of sunblock, toxic.
Yeah, that's what
they don't tell you that either. Not good. There's two different kinds of sunblock. There's the toxic, bad kind. So I'm going to try to go through this as fast as I can because there's a lot to cover. So because of how successful the war against sunlight has been, many people are unaware of its benefits. For example, sunlight is critical for mental health. This is most well appreciated with depression. For example, consider this study of Chinese operating room nurses, which found their mental health was significantly worse than the general population, and that this decline was correlated to their lack of sunlight exposure. Okay, so that's one. Number two, a large epidemiological study found women with higher solar UVB exposure had only half the incidence of breast cancer as those with lower solar exposure, and that men with higher residential solar exposure had only half the incidence of fatal prostate cancer. A 50% reduction in either of these cancers greatly exceeds what any of the approaches we use to treat or prevent them have accomplished. The sun, for fighting cancer.
All right. I'm going to highly recommend everyone listen to this whole thing. Dr. Roy, this just... there are some things that need to be kind of leveled out here, but you and I do agree that vitamin D deficiency
is bad.
So skin cancer bad.
Yeah.
The lack of vitamin D, proper amounts of vitamin D, causes a lot of other things other than skin cancer. It's heart,
bones,
everything. I mean, it's attached to everything. I mean, overall health.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out, I want to learn more about the Australians. Are they using sunscreen or not using sunscreen? What other things do they have going on in their diet?
I think they're not. But one of the things that I noticed when I first opened my practice, I would check a vitamin D level on every new patient that I saw. And about 2/3 of the new patients were vitamin D deficient. And I got to the point, I said, why spend $50 on a test when you know the answer? So I quit checking their vitamin D and put them on vitamin D supplements. The vast majority of them can take just regular vitamin D3 and it will help. There is a small number, but significant, who can't absorb or can't use vitamin D3. So I use vitamin D2 on those people. They only have to take one capsule per week, and that works out very well. But you can do that with all of them. So it's, the sun is not necessarily our enemy with all of this. But I suspect that all the people in Australia that get melanoma is the bad kind of skin cancer. That's the one that will metastasize to the rest of your body and you'll die from it. Whereas squamous cell carcinoma and basal cell carcinoma are on your skin, and all you have to do is get those chopped off. Some people ignore the squamous cell carcinoma, and I've seen at least 2 patients who had huge squamous cell carcinomas on their ears. And did that show up? Yeah, it's on that side. It's awful looking in there and seeing yourself exactly the same as you are, not like a mirror. But they had huge squamous cell carcinomas on their ears, and their wives, both of them, came to me and said, is there anything that you can do about that? And the ear, nose, and throat and plastic surgeons in this town wouldn't even touch them. They sent them all up to Indianapolis, and there's a group there that does that. And basically they had their entire ear removed and some of the mastoid, taken out, but they're going to survive. They're not going to die from that.
Well, I mean, I think so. For me, it's interesting hearing your friction because you obviously read up on. I'll let you come right back. You read up on Australia.
Yeah.
Part of what I'm here, I think, to do, and we're going to stream in AI here in a minute. And Travis got a question before we move to that, but real quickly, as you were talking, I did a cue to Grok, and I asked what Dr. Jack Kruse might say about high skin cancer rates in Australia.
Yeah.
And here's what it said.
He's never answered our question, by the way.
Yeah, that one I know. I don't know what happened to him, but we're still. I'm still. He's responded to 2 other things that I posted. So he hasn't.
Yeah.
And he's several of his clones, people that aren't truly him, have been trying to engage with me because I post.
Oh yeah, I keep kicking.
So you got to make sure that it's actually him. But let me just read this a few paragraphs here, and it's pretty interesting. And I'm not saying this necessarily to promote Jack Kruse above and beyond anyone else. What I would like to have is if I write a prompt and a script into Grok or into other large language model, and I say, consider what Dr. Jack Kruse and 10 other of people that we know and trust might say about this. And then that way you get friction upon those ideas, and there might be some counter back and forth that we can learn from. But let me just say this real quick. Dr. Jack Kruse has shared opinions on why skin cancer rates, particularly melanoma, are so high in Australia, and why he believes a conventional explanation trying to solely to sun exposure is incomplete or flawed. Kruse argues that skin cancer, including melanoma, is linked more to the lack of proper sunlight exposure rather than too much of it. He suggests that the modern lifestyle, spending too much time indoors under artificial light, wearing sunglasses, and using sunscreen prevent the skin from optimally producing vitamin D and melanin, both of which he considers protective against cancer. In Australia, despite its sunny climate, people often avoid sun exposure due to aggressive public health campaigns and cover up excessively, which he believes creates a paradox. High UV exposure potential, but low actual benefit interaction with the sunlight itself. And so this is just a really good frictionary, and I'm not saying he's right, but most people that go out in the sun wear sunglasses. And so you don't get proper absorption of good rays through that. Most people that go out, and you said it's because a lot of people lay out on the beach all day in Australia. So maybe there's some wrong in the study that you saw, or in what's this saying. So I'm not saying that either one of them are right or wrong. I'm just saying what he's saying about the other stuff does seem logical to me. Like if you're not getting proper exposure of the sun throughout the year, and you're going out just a little bit and getting blasted and burned and whatever, that's not good. I mean, that's not good. The artificial light, you and I are wearing orange glasses because we believe in it. My gut issues have basically gone away because as soon as the sun goes down, I don't let non-native blue light into my eyes, and my gut has completely changed. So we'll pivot right out of this. I just wanted to put that there. What was your thing that you wanted to impart back to?
Well, yeah, just for Doc, I was when we listened to that clip, he called malarkey on them talking about rebranding. I was just going to see just if you wanted to elaborate any more on that.
What about rebranding the
dermatology with
Oh, well, what he said was that dermatologists are the highest paid physicians in the world.
Oh, that's what you called malarkey.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That is not the case. If you look at all the people who get paid,
brain surgeons probably number one.
Yeah,
I would think plastic surgeons, honestly.
Neurosurgery is one. Vascular surgery is another one, and some of the other.
I've seen Nip Tuck. Plastic surgery has to be up there somewhere.
Plastics is kind of about the same as a general surgery.
Really?
It's not that much. Radiology is one of the highest paid groups, and that is because there aren't enough radiologists to handle everything. But AI is going to take that away. I've got a friend who's a radiologist, and you guys have met him, and he thinks that he's got about 10 more years before he's no longer needed.
He thinks there'll be an AI that'll be able to read those.
Well,
but he doesn't think they
use AI anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard them of that catching things that the doctors have missed before. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's not just what the doctors miss if the doctor had never seen it before, wasn't exposed to it. I mean, the thing about it is, if you can take 1,000 doctors and 1 million patients and cross-reference tests and in blood and all these different things, and the markers are going to pop up. You know what to look for. So it's not that it's like what we were talking about with Dr. Roy earlier. I mean, he doesn't have time to keep on top of every single thing and the vitamin levels and there's just too much going on. Whereas AI knows it all like that.
Yeah,
I mean, it knows everything right now. It's smarter than
it's pretty smart, but
getting better every day.
And then on the other hand, there are, if you think about mammography, looking for cancer in the breast, I have diagnosed at least 4 women who had normal mammograms, but I diagnosed them with cancer because I examined their breasts. So it adds about 10% to the ability to find cancer in breast exams.
I'll give those for free. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm sorry.
Oh, you.
I had to. I'm sorry.
Oh, you.
I owe me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Doctor, you said everything.
Pervert.
He is a pervert.
No,
have you said
I'm
everything?
just trying to do my part for the health organization.
Yeah.
Have you said everything you wanted to say on that particular thing, Doc?
One more thing. The one thing
Don't go to
about
Travis for mammogram.
Yeah. The one thing about
Dr. Roy is not recommending Travis to help you with your.
Travis wouldn't recommend Travis for that.
That right. The problem is you don't know what you're looking for.
I know what I'm looking at.
He'll be very thorough. He'll be very thorough.
Very.
Yeah.
I'll cover every inch.
Yeah, but you don't know what you can't tell a cyst from a cancer, whereas most of us can.
I wasn't trying to downplay. I was just kidding.
Yeah, I know.
Do I need to put like a
polio?
Or wait, no, not that. that. Do I need to put that with it so you know?
Sure.
Anyway.
All right, move on.
All right.
Is that all we got? All
So I got a little bit of humor here.
More?
It's a short thing on tariffs, and we're not really going to talk about
tariffs.
Yeah, because just all the stuff going on with tariffs, and
He's going to ruin us. We're all going to lose our
yeah. So
The Dow's down 3 million%.
This one might be about Doge and tariff. I don't remember. I just remember somebody sent it to me, and it was funny. I felt like I had to include it, and I told them I would. Let's listen.
So, like, President Trump is, like, going through, he's having Elon go through all of this stuff to, like, see where America's taxpayer dollars are going to. And, like, they're finding so much corruption. And I just wish that they would stop because it's really, like, none of their business. And I enjoy paying my taxes to other countries. And I love that it goes into, like, other people's pockets instead of mine. And I just really love that. And I hate that he's deporting all of these people because I also enjoy all of my tax dollars going to pay for all of their living, even though they came here illegally. And everything is like not going according to plan. Like he's like kept his word on everything he said. Like everything he said, he kept his word on. Like presidents aren't supposed to do that. This is the stupidest thing ever. I just wish I'd stay at what? I hate him too.
I love Scott, but he dresses every day.
I don't know what happened there. Well, anyway, that was funny. I had to throw that in, and so you got to keep things light.
You always get some whiny person, boy or woman, that are.
You don't get to make that decision.
Yeah, they. Hey, I can tell them.
You have an Adam's apple. That doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
If he's got an apple in his neck, he's probably got a banana below.
Oh my!
Yeah.
All right. So
actually, speaking of that, there's a lot of women that are starting to try to speak up for themselves in the NCAA, or in a lot of different sporting.
Oh yeah, Riley Gaines is running that.
Well, so is that the swimmer that was with Leah Thomas?
Yeah.
Okay, so but recently the fencer. And then,
they've all quit.
And then I just saw a. Unfortunately, it's not like major sports, but I saw a disc golf. a disc golf tournament where it was
where she refused.
Yeah,
to play.
she was like straight up getting ready to throw, and then
if you go back to the fencer, she quit because she didn't want to fence against a man.
Right.
And the end of the fencing is two men at the end of the
It's funny you say that. There was a UK billiards tournament that happened. It was a women's billiards tournament in the UK, and the two finalists were both biological men.
Yeah.
What's happening? Why does no one think there's something? Well, a lot of people think something's wrong with it, but I mean, I even have on my wife's side of the family. She has she had a beautiful little girl who came to our wedding. She was probably 10 or so at the time. When she was 15 or so, she talked to her parents. Actually, one of her parents, they ended up getting a divorce over this, but talked one into gene therapy or hormones and everything. And now she's manlier than I am, which is fine. He's a great. I say kid. He's probably 22 or 3 now, but she is trying to act like it's trying to downplay that. Like, why does anybody care? It doesn't affect anybody. It's not that big a deal. And I really want to tell her that I take it personally because I have a daughter, and anybody probably takes it to heart a little bit. But my wife tries to tell me, well, don't incite anything with her. Don't say anything. And I'm like, she said, it doesn't affect you. And I said, that little girl over there is how it affects me. Like, if she ever has to come up with it, like go against this or
this
have
is
to
a big
deal with
sticking
that.
point for me. I mean, we are in such a crux in our country of a lack of civics training and real history. It's really damaging. I mean, our kids, especially with AI, which we're getting ready to kind of branch into here in just a second and start talking about it. I mean, they have to understand ethics. They have to understand how to have conversations, how to listen to people that they don't agree with, and stay calm. And try to learn from each conversation that you have.
I remember when adults
he's doing everything he said he was going to.
I mean, that was a perfect mocking. I mean, she was making fun of it while also giving him credit for doing.
I remember, like in the '90s, when you could just have very civil conversations with people who felt the opposite of things.
Yeah, I don't know what's
changed. Yeah, that's I was going to say the same thing. I have no idea when that changed, but you can't. It's impossible now. Almost.
Knives out.
Yeah. So let's pivot into some AI stuff here. And this is one of the topics that I have been very intrigued by. I mean, I've been talking about, several of my first podcasts were about AI before all the large language models really came down the pipeline. And I was trying to warn people about what I thought would be coming. And I think we're getting closer and closer to a point. And it's concerning to me that, again, local media is not talking about it. I'm engaged with a local school that my child goes to. They are talking about it, but they're not. I don't think anyone really knows quite how to address it and handle it.
Prepare the youth for the future, kind of deal.
If the technologists that are driving AI right now are correct, and Travis said he saw a post and maybe a video on Elon Musk today or yesterday or whatever about Optimus, which is the autonomous robot who will have basically Tesla intelligence, GPS, all that built into it, plus a large language model, and very soon the ability to have a conversation. Like right now, I have a problem with Grok because you have to type what you want it to ask it. It has the ability to listen, voice to text, and then it will be able to respond to me in some kind of a voice, whatever voice it decides it wants to give it. Think about Siri. It'll just start spitting things back out to me. So the problem that I think we're really overlooking and not addressing is how to prepare our children for it. Because our children and our future career track, you mentioned Doc and how he thinks his job will be out of play. I think it'll be faster than 10 years, just frankly. There's a lot of things that are going to go away pretty fast. But our kids have no idea what's coming, and I'm really concerned about the potential lack of purpose moving forward. What are they going to school and working hard for if things are going to be made by robots in the not so distant future? We're not adjusting our curriculum and our education to go towards the things that are most important, that will be most important. No one's stopping AI. So what are we doing?
Yeah. Well, but what will that be though?
That's the conversation.
Kind of the problem.
Is the conversations that need to be had.
I'm trying to fathom. I work with an LLM software that uses LLM and uses kind of a workflow analysis in a digital worker format. So anything done in a digital sense can be done by an AI that my company's trying to develop, and I'm on that team. And I can't even really fathom what exactly the human race needs to learn to do. It's going to take time.
Okay. So
but I'm just trying to say, where
the video
where
that I
go?
shared with you, I think you watched.
Yeah,
part
they
of
talk
it.
about it somewhat.
The thing that's up there is talking about the number one skill. The most important thing is AI ethics, meaning we're going to have competing AIs. You're going to have your own personal AI. I'm going to have my own personal AI.
Right.
Each one of them are going to be autonomous to us, and other companies are doing it. So the problem that we have with capitalism as we're structured, you and I have grown up in a capitalist system, meaning if you beat me to the punch on something, you win, I lose, right? And you make more money, I don't, or you win the game, I don't. And it's very everything is a competition. And the argument that Mo Gadat makes, and I've got several of his books here behind me. I think he's a fabulous philosopher. He's a brilliant tech guy, venture capitalist, I think. He's from India, but he's seeing things differently in India. And this conversation particularly is talking about the arms race with China, which is a whole nother thing that doesn't have to do with necessarily what we want to talk about today. But it's the same argument that happens when people bring up why we should go to solar and wind power. I say, well, the problem that we have there is we're relying on China. China has 90% of that technology. Anything that we put up here has to stem through China. If China doesn't want us to have the stuff, we're not going to have the stuff. So
that's where these tariffs can help.
That's why tariffs are important, because we need the manufacturing, we need the parts, we need to be able to assemble the things if we're going to be relying upon putting them up and using them for our energy. Otherwise, it just won't work. Same thing with drones. Drones are 90% controlled by China. Why is that important? Well, they've been allowed to allow drone manufacturers to get better and better and better. And now drone warfare is the thing that is happening in Ukraine and Russia. And we're completely not prepared for that.
Did you see that TED Talk where that guy had that mini drone that had a small, like a two, I can't remember. It was a very light charge on it, but it was enough to penetrate the skull. And he actually on the TED Talk on stage had this little mini drone, had a mannequin, and threw the mini drone out in the crowd. It flew around, face recognized the dummy, and hit it right between the eyes. And it actually discharged the charge and everything. Like it was alive. And I was really surprised it was a live drone when he did it. But he showed how very easily it was a very small mini drone. It was completely autonomous. All he did was throw it out. It started to fly and it went straight into it. I'll find that clip for you.
Well, you just mentioned 6 different things that we're facing here. You got facial recognition, surveillance, tracking of who you are. I mean, there's so many things in there that need to be talked about out in we're just not talking about it.
So that exists now, is what I was getting at. That now exists.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And it's getting better every day. And
anybody wearing the American flag on their shoulder, go. No.
Yeah. If you go to Toyota, where they make cars, about 80% of it is done by robots. And because it's repetitive and it's specific, so they're putting stuff on, and they have guys standing on the line to make sure that everything works. But it's mostly the robots.
More quality control.
And that's what'll be good with Optimus. That's kind of where what I was reading up and watching about Tesla's Optimus program, which they're in Gen 2 of their Optimus robots, is that they'll be able to be used for very repetitive motions. Or things that a human can't even, heavier lifting or radioactive cleanup, or just so many things that we can't really do.
Well, as far as the military goes, they've got little robots, not little, they weigh about 100 pounds, but they're built like a dog.
Oh, yeah.
And they go in to find explosives, and they can detect the explosives They have the ability to do that, and they'll set the thing with an explosive that will blow it up, they just back out.
I think you're talking about those Boston Dynamic dogs, and they've actually they fitted some of those with Gatling guns on their back. Like they've fitted those with actual rounds, munitions.
Yeah, and Mo actually talks about that, and I think that Boston Dynamics, that company has mostly not been that successful, but it was impressive what they were able to accomplish.
They maybe not, but they were kind of first to the
they were pushing the technology.
Yeah.
So one of the things from this clip, it's a rather long clip, but I think we're going to kind of wrap on this. We're going to end the show on this. One of the things that popped out in this, I think it'll be in this segment that I'm sharing, is Mo. Not only AI ethics is one of the most important things that everyone needs to be trained on, and need to be trained on why it's important. He says the top skill he believes will be determining what's true and what's fake.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
that is in this clip.
We've talked about that. We've talked about that from the beginning of this. Whenever I sat down with Dr. Roy first, and I brought this concept of truth-seeking apparatus to him, and I didn't really know what I was trying to say at the time, but now more and more people are saying it, like the AI it's smarter than everyone, but it's still based on information that's been fed into it. Mm-hmm. And if you have governments or people that censor information, we talk about Google not letting us talk about ivermectin, not letting us talk about negative stuff that's going on with vaccines. It's going to lie to you, not really even knowing that it's lying to you.
With the information that it has. It's going to
with the information that it has. So we have to be auditors in a sense. We have to be able to know what's fake, call it out, and then somehow have a fix. Like we need to be able to audit it in real time and say, what you're saying is wrong. And there's not a lot of information out there. It's because that information has been censored, or it's not allowed, or people just aren't talking about it. So we have to make that change. So let's play this clip. Do you have something to say before we watch this clip?
No.
It's very fascinating. The reason why I find this is important, and why I'll share these clips alone with my friends and people that I love, is we're just not having the conversation. Again, local media needs to be telling us things that we need to be looking out for. It's supposed to be our rear view mirror and our, the bright lights through the fog. They're supposed to be telling us things that we should be looking out for, and this is just a big shortfall. So,
and we all live 1,000 lives, and we all fit, properly in the simulation, if we so choose, right? But the transition, oh my God. The transition is really, really interesting. And the transition, the way you describe it, when you're in your chamber and others are not, that's a very, very interesting moment to consider. Okay? It is. And interestingly, we don't have to wait for patient 1,000 to imagine those scenarios.
Just to give some context here, he's talking about as AI develops and people will have their personal AIs, and they'll be able to basically go into their own reality, like virtual reality, put on their headsets, be immersed in this thing, potentially Neuralink connections, and basically they'll just be able to sit in a pod and travel to Mars without physically going to Mars. So I just wanted to kind of lay that foundation so we know what he's talking about.
Are you going to start doing something about them? I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with your first question of how fast AI is going. Okay? It is not a question of if anymore. We know this is going to happen. We know that this level of technological advancement is going to happen. We know what intelligence can bring to the table. So why are we not sitting down to discuss this right now? Don't understand.
Yeah, something I think you and I should discuss right now is, let's say you're 17. You've got some decisions to make. I just read a post, I think it was on Reddit. My producer gave it to me, and it was somebody who was like, listen, I've spent the last, 30 years investing in being one of the greatest computer scientists in the world. I've been coding. I've worked at the FANG companies, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year at the height. And I just got let go. And the reason given was we've created so many more efficiencies with AI that this entire department is no longer needed. How should a 17-year-old think about approaching the world, given that I would say anyway, that it's unwise to throw your hands up and just wait at this point? You're going to have to take action. No. So what should they do?
So again, I'm not smart enough I'll say that openly. I don't know what I should do. I think I should be very clear about that. In a world with so many moving parts, you can only hedge your bets if you want. Okay, so let's begin with your relationship with AI as a 17-year-old. If I told you that most people will say, do you want to be a lawyer? Do you want to be a doctor? Do you wanna, whatever it is that you're interested in, you want to be an AI that, right? You wanna be the best that uses AI in the next few months or years to generate graphic images or logos. Okay, because there is a transition where, for a while, where a human plus an AI will be better than an AI alone, and you can be that human. So that this is, to me, my first immediate opportunity, right? The second immediate opportunity, if you ask me, is really how can you prioritize intelligence, not skills, not knowledge, not productivity, not money. Okay, the biggest asset that you will ever have is intelligence. And I will tell you openly, as an older man, I am less capable of learning all of the new tools that are coming in today than the younger people that I follow, who will see Manos come out of China, and then 2 days later they know exactly how to use it for coding, and then Claude 3.6 was it, or the latest one comes out and they go in. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, they know immediately what it is that, they can use it for and how to use it for programming. And then Gemini comes out with the better one. And I don't have that speed. But as a younger person today, I think the trick is to get yourself into that pace and let yourself flow with that pace. There is not a single tool that you will use for more than a month at a time. But the game is that you constantly become the one that is aware of the next and latest tool. Right? That's number two. Number three, which is, I have to say, a very philosophical view of the world, is that we have for a long time lived in a world where it is hard to know the truth. Okay. From one side, because there is no real absolute truth. You and I, who have a lot of respect for each other, will have different points of view. By definition, we're probably both wrong, but at least, not all the time that one of us is right and the other is wrong. But that we're entering a world where we're completely mind manipulated. Okay, every bit of info, even intelligent people like you are going to be getting in the next few years, are going to be coming from an AI. Right. And so, and if that AI is motivated by an agenda of someone who's not very ethical, then you're going to get a lot of lies. And I think the top skill in today's world is to distinguish what's true from what's fake. Okay. And this is a skill that we had before the internet and lost on the internet. And it's now time to get back. But before the internet, we would go and visit 16 books to establish a fact. Okay. At the beginning of the internet, for all of us who love the hyperlink more than they love anything in the world, we would visit 100 websites to establish a fact. But then when social media came out, we just believe whatever the influencer says because she has a cute butt. Okay?
Because she has a cute butt.
And so the truth is, we've suddenly lost our ability to discern what's true and what's not. And I think now is the time to go back to that ability to debate everything, to ask for sources, when I was telling you today about the idea of in comparison of the Intel 404 and the latest microchips, I ran test mathematics with the AI to prove that its calculation was correct, that it is actually 26 to 27 doublings, and that this is the actual performance, and so on and so forth. So you have to establish that ability of not everything they tell me is true, right? And then finally, which I think can save all of us, is AI ethics, is ethics in general, okay? And truly and honestly, as we started the conversation, artificial intelligence is an amazing power with no polarity. Okay, polarity doesn't come from intelligence. So you and I do not use our intelligence to make decisions. We use our ethical framework to make decisions as informed by our intelligence, right? And so accordingly, we are at a time where the absolute scarce resource is going to become abundance, and it's going to make everything else abundant, right? So we're going to have abundance of intelligence that's going to lead to abundance of everything. The question is, what things is it going?
This is a good point to stop, and let me just kind of finish where he goes and why this is important. When he says abundance of everything, meaning if AIs and robotics are able to create things and humans are not needed to create those things, we have to think about what the system looks like for us little people, meaning the people that own these AIs and these systems and the Elon Musks of the world. You can't stop that from happening. You can only hope those actors are good actors and they're doing the best that they can. What I'll say about Elon, like him or not like him, he has talked about universal basic income. That's another thing that this Mo guy talks about. And that teeters in this is socialist, this is communist, this is whatever. So I've been a capitalist all my life. This is a weak point for me because every time I hear the word like that, a universal basic income, I automatically say, how can that work? I mean, it's never worked. But then again, we've never had an actual AI and robot system that could create things that didn't take someone out working hard creating them. So when we're not doing that anymore and you're not doctoring the same way that you used to, we have to fill that void with something, right?
I'm with you there. I'm capitalist through and through. Have a lot of family members that have their own businesses and everything, and so that's definitely something that I support is capitalism. Yeah. But I agree, especially after watching this and then kind of doing a little more thinking and just kind of sitting back and there's going to be a lot of jobs. I don't want to say lost. A lot of jobs that are taken over by by whether it be robots or whether it be just some type of AI.
Dr. Roy's point with his doctor friend who's a radiologist that if people are still going to become doctors right now in the interim to become radiologists and they spend $300,000 or whatever it is they do to become a doctor, it's not their fault. There's no longer a need. They weren't told in time.
Yeah.
We still need those people now, but at some point that cutoff is gone. So should Dr. Roy or his friend just be, I'm sorry, you got to lose your house now because technology is taking over. There's an argument to be made there. There's universal basic income should at least cover the payment, or, cover the loan.
I think it's some type of maybe, I don't want to say tax, but some type of fund with people who utilize this technology. There's going to have to be something that they pay for the use of this technology. Maybe it'll be less pay per worker, and then there'll be a subsidy. Who knows what it's going to be, but I mean, there has to be something.
Well, he draws the utopian piece of it, meaning we're going to need a lot more farmers. Maybe like we might end up being agrarian again. We might say, "Here's your piece of land."
But if you give like Jeff Bezos $1 million a year and take the rest of that money and spread it out, I think pretty much everybody will get $1 million a year. I mean, not that. He talks about. Has he already? I'm sorry, I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention because I watched this. But was he talking about the just different colored car yet? Has he gotten into that?
No,
that whole thing yet? Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, the reality of it is, whenever everything is there,
Ego.
$1 million doesn't really mean anything anymore.
No,
right? You'll still have to buy things. You still have to pay for your home. I think you'll still have to
now. If robots build homes, robots go cut the trees, robots go do the.
But somebody has to pay for the robots, pay for the upkeep of the robots. I mean, there's still going to be money changed somewhere along the way.
What you're saying?
Them when they go bad.
Repair might be a thing, or they might just replace them. If robots are just might repair the robot,
right? Probably.
But the point he's making here is he's not saying this is going to happen tomorrow.
Sure.
He's saying like if this thing goes at the level it's going, he believes we're going to have a real problem in just a few years. Mm-hmm. And if you look to 10 years. Then, I mean, your point to the homes is important, but if the jobs aren't there to give you money to pay for the home, we have to come up with a new system.
That's where the income you're talking about or something. I mean, there's still going to be some type of currency changes hands because like you're going to want to travel somewhere, so you're going to need a car. I'm assuming.
Yeah,
that's going to cost money.
Well, it'll all be automated.
It will be. I mean, like I was telling you earlier on CES 2025, there's a Honda. It's a prototype, but it's got I can't remember what they call it, phase 3 or whatever 3. It's got the full autonomy, so you'll be able to put in your destination and then just sit back and let it do its thing.
Why own a car like that when
it'll probably be more ride share.
Yeah,
I think it'll probably be more you'll order a car.
Well, Musk is already doing that. Like you can buy a Tesla and you can put your Tesla up as a Uber.
Yeah.
And the Uber will get a call out of your driveway and it'll go pick somebody up, take them, and then come back and sit in your, and you basically rent it out.
And
that's coming.
And hand you $30.
So that's coming. Well, it'll be an app, and when we hand it to you, you'll just push the button.
But there's still money required. So that's where I'm saying that somehow I don't think it's ever going to be everything's free. Maybe in 200 years.
It's less than 200 years.
I mean,
we won't be here. We won't be here because it's going to have to we're going to have to rapidly rethink how we rethink. Like our ethics, our philosophy, everything is changing.
Yeah,
we're to the point.
I think wealth allocation is going to be much more even. It's going to have to be much more even. Okay. That's where that utopian society is going to be.
Here's where you're wrong. The people, the Elon Musks of the world will be normal. Like you're going to have the extremely wealthy people at the top that have all of this.
But I think they're going to have to let some of it go for the work to work.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's so there's got to be some conversation about what that looks like, because Elon will tell you he doesn't need $1 trillion,
right?
Except for he wants to go to Mars. And he likes to have an unlimited resource to do the next thing that's going to drive us going to Mars. So is that fair or unfair? I mean, I think he's earned it if he wants to go to Mars and that's what he's doing and everybody's okay with that, fine. At the end of the day, though, you don't think that it's going to happen, but we didn't think that we were going to have AIs replacing most of the work. 20 years ago, we couldn't even really have fathomed that.
No.
And so our older brains now that we've had life without the internet, life without artificial intelligence, it's harder for us to grasp. Think about our kids, though, who have a phone that could have taken us to the moon. This is smarter than that apparatus.
We never went to the moon.
Well, I mean,
I'm just messing with you.
The technology, you know what I'm saying, though. The technology is they have the power of everything in there.
Oh yeah, these are such powerful machines.
And
absolutely.
So they have to have some kind of ethical understanding of what to do with that power. What he talks about is abundance. Like we're not trained, and that capitalism the statement for me is capitalism is not necessarily about abundance of everybody. It's about me winning and being a little richer than you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The theory, what we're talking about is abundance, and the meaning there's a huge pile of everything out there. And we have to have an agreement that, and it sounds very socialist and it's very utopian. It's like, how many maids do you need for your house? That are robots, and you get just the one you need, and like this is where it does get more
socialistic,
like China, very socialistic and very scary to think about. But if you don't think about it and you don't try to actually give me the best capitalist that you have on the planet, and have him explain to me how it works otherwise.
That's got to be about the only way that's going to work.
Yeah. Well, that's where the AIs are going to be the smartest capitalists on the planet, though, because you've got AIs that you can put the top.
We just can't have like a temple of Syrinx, like Russia's 2112, where like the computers are running the world.
It needs to be the smartest person in the 10 smartest capitalists sitting around with a personal AI in front of them, bringing AI ethics. You got to set the rules about abundance and fairness and equality, and then you got to prompt, ask questions, and let AI figure it out, and then test it. Because they're going to figure it out. They're going to give you theories of what you think, but it's never been done before. Then you got to test it. So we need like 10,000 test sites. Like take a city and run this scenario, and this is what we're doing. Take a city, run this scenario, and this is what we're doing. Okay, what's working over here that's not working here? Okay, now now that's working, is it going to work forever, or is that just a short-term thing? And that's the way, like, we have to have that communication. So, I mean, that's going to be happening.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
One thing that I'm thinking here is that the number of humans on the planet is going to go down drastically as we get more and more AI, more and more robots, and people get...
I don't know. There's going to be a lot more time to make them babies when you're not working.
Yeah, so this is a different.
I don't know.
It's a different.
But that's part of Optimus. So Elon with Tesla Optimus, that's one of his big things. Is we're currently
Elon's made a lot of babies. That's
not what I'm saying.
He believes
we're in a population decline, and
he believes we're in a population collapse.
Well,
not decline. He believes.
It's currently declining, maybe going towards a collapse.
He thinks China is going to collapse.
But anyway, that's one of his reasonings behind Optimus and being able to fill these voids is that there's going to be voids there no matter what, so we need something to be able to take the place.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where some of that comes to. But
yeah, so I mean, how many, like, that's a whole nother scary, that's a very Orwellian conversation. Like, well, how many people can be on the planet? Who's making that decision? That's where
Bill Gates thinks there needs to be 500,000 people on the
the
planet.
It was like 500,000, I think, is what he thought.
I feel like telling Bill, just take you and your family and start the trend, bud. Like,
go right ahead.
If you think it's a great idea,
cut them down.
Jeez, Pete.
Anyway,
I feel like we could really. Are you ready to go, Doc?
Oh, I am.
It's 8:35. We're getting.
I haven't eaten in 12 hours.
We're at
intermittent fasting. That's good for you.
We're at 2:49.
Oh, so it's pretty long. Yeah. I feel I could talk about this.
We could have more of an AI conversation. And he talks a little bit more about the utopian with that clip. If you go a little further into it, he talks about that idea of, right now it has to do with ego and that, somebody wants to be able to buy the car that nobody else can buy. But if we get it right, it's going to be, well, you have a red car, you have a green car, we have the same car, but it's going to just be maybe a different color of the car.
That's true. And if it's green, it's because you've achieved this thing that's
right. That's how to kind of show your status. But ego is going to have to come down quite a bit for the whole utopian idea to work. And,
well, I think that goes more to more of the doubt. I don't know what is the thing. It's definitely not. Maybe it's. I don't know if it's aligned with Christianity, but I mean there are religions that are very ego is completely off the table. Like the ego,
that's like a Buddha thing.
Ego is the enemy. Yeah, I mean it's like you should be more. Who the people that sit in the churches and they pray all day and whatever. I mean
monks.
Yeah, it's more like
Quakers.
Yeah, I mean it's just so. I mean who. It's not going to be any of us here sitting at this table that are going to decide it.
No, not at all.
But again, how do we teach our kids?
So the crux of all this is how do we point our kids in the direction they need to go?
What are the questions right now with your younger kid and my 14-year-old to guide them? Is like he's getting ready to go to college. Okay, so am I the one that's telling him you shouldn't go into radiology? If am I the one, because it's not being talked about?
But I mean, if you think about it. So you brought up your ethics, but I mean, there's not going to be
the American College of Radiology is talking about that.
Okay. So
the fact that AI is going to replace some of them within the next 5 years.
That's good.
Yeah.
So,
so what do we do? That's my question.
Maybe we can have people who are, and they're also saying that primary care providers will be out. And you have an AI robot there. And it's
you can take your blood work and your
blood work and examine you and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Knows the difference between cysts and cancer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so your question, Travis, and we are in this interim window where, and I believe there will always be the case for human conversations that impact the data sets, which impact the content that goes into the AI, because this goes back to the auditor philosophy, meaning if you and I decide we're going to do a podcast and like for the first 3 years, we're not going to really make anything. But if we get really good at talking about these issues and how they're important and how it's going to affect education, how it might affect your kid, how it might affect everything that's going on inside, what businesses you build, you become someone that's asking the right questions. And it's not you necessarily asking. You can go to Grok and say, Grok, I want you to interview me. And I want you to take the best insights from me and help me navigate this problem. And then I'm going to share that with other people and teach them how to ask their own AIs that question. I've talked about it for a long time. It's like the quality of your life is going to be hugely, the most important thing will be the quality of the questions that you ask. And I used to think that was the quality of the questions that you would go out and you would ask Dr. Roy. What's the secret to your success? And if I ask him the right question and he gives me the answer and I can take that and run with it, that's the way I used to look at it. Like, I can do what Dr. Roy did in this. I'm not going to do what Dr. Roy did on that because I think he didn't really do a good job with that. But now it's completely opposite of that. I think we're inversing that, and I'm not saying it's happening today, but we have to look at it 5 years from now. And preparing people to even have that conversation is part of our journey. Would it be fair if we made a little bit of money doing it along the way? While that's relevant, I mean, we still need to put the mortgage payment in the mail.
Sure.
There's that window of time. And it is relevant because we're still going to be alive. I mean, I think technology is, if we can keep you around from there to 10, 15 years. No, what I'm saying is, like, I think we're going to solve a lot of problems, and our lifespans are going to go longer. That causes a whole nother problem with Social Security. The monetary
What'll be gone
side
if we go to the utopian society? We won't
that's
need
the thing. Where AI tech really can bring that utopian thing, because income tax is not really going to be as significant. I mean, Elon Musk is trying to get a rocket onto
Mars?
comets.
To
mine material. Like there's trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars on comets that we can mine, and that will be abundant for the planet. If we have unlimited energy, if we have unlimited opportunity, like, it doesn't cost anything to have this thing spread out. We have to figure out how to live with each other. Because we're really good at war. I mean, we don't need to be good at war.
Yeah,
that's really dangerous in today's world with self-manned, unmanned drones that can think for themselves, and they don't think we're very smart because we're not. So anyway, this could be a really fun conversation, and I think, Roy, your input in this is really interesting because you have dealt with AI probably longer than he and I, just in how you've it came to you through medical.
Yeah.
And it's also the most dangerous to me because the medical AI has not been trained very well.
No.
Like, it's not being told the truth all the time, which I think is hopefully what we're inputting into the algorithm and the data, meaning,
I would definitely like to put that in there. Yeah, trust no one, question everyone.
Untest and look at the results. Kick the tires. I mean, that's the thing. That's what I feel like the AIs should be able to do. Like, give me 1,000 test people that want to do fenbendazole with ivermectin and before they go into standard treatments of cancer. And if their markers all get better and better and better, why would you go into the standard treatments where the treatment's trying to kill you? It's killing all your good cells and your bad cells. Why would we want to do that if it's already being fixed? So anyway, we could go around circles.
Right.
I had a lot of fun tonight, gentlemen. And
I did too.
I want to do it as often as possible. I'm trying to talk Travis into doing another program that might be an AI driven program that you're not maybe here if you don't get divorced by doing another night. Maybe we'll see what happens. But I love you guys. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks for everybody tuning in. It was
Thanks a lot, folks.
a long one, but a fun one.
Yep. Have a good night.
Bye.
See you guys.